Hey, Missy. Hey, Todd.
Hey,
Hello.
Hey, Missy. Before other folks get on, I wanted to just mention, I know Sean had reached
On
out.
mute now.
Yeah, huh? I didn't hear you, Missy. Can you not hear me?
good morning.
Good morning, and I can hear you, Candace.
Oh, okay. I don't know if Misty just couldn't hear me.
Missy, can you hear any of us?
Missy? Uh-oh.
And Messenger is disabled. So
Yeah.
Candace, why don't you text her?
Yep.
I just let her know, so I think she's gonna
Okay.
try to figure that out.
I'm sorry, Matt. I realized you said good morning. I didn't say good morning.
I think maybe my audio is messed up.
Oh, okay. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
I'm gonna restart.
Hey, Candace and Todd and others, I have to recuse myself on one of them today. I forget the number, but it's the Melpomene housing thing, that Iris housing thing.
Yeah, that was the one with Nora. Well, what is that?
Hannah.
Hanno, and Mawako.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do I need to say anything, or can I just shut off my camera and?
Yeah, once it starts, I think as staff, before they start reading it, just make a statement that you have to recuse, and then you can just turn your camera off and just make sure your line is muted.
Okay.
And I'm making a note just so I remember.
So that means no funny faces.
Good morning, folks.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Groundwork. My nonprofit's involved with it. They're in a contract negotiation for doing green infrastructure, so I gotta stay out. So I will be.
Got it.
I think I'm here.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear y'all now. I just need to restart.
Good deal.
All right, I'm gonna let the applicants in, and then we can get started in just a minute.
Okay.
All right, is everybody ready to get started? I want to make sure Council Chambers is ready as well. All right, excellent. Good morning. I would like to call the Monday, March 15th, 2021 Board of Zoning Adjustments meeting to order. We will begin with roll call. Candace Forrest,
I think the wave served as her yay.
I'm sorry,
thank you.
did you hear me? Present.
No. Candace Forrest, Todd James,
Present.
Tamara Agins,
Present.
Jose Alvarez, Jose.
You heard me, present?
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Ramiro Diaz,
Present.
Alfonso Gonzalez, I think it's absent currently, and Matt Rufo. Thank you. At this time, would the board make a motion to adopt the minutes from the February 8th meeting?
I, Todd James, so move.
Tamara Egan, second.
Second by Commissioner Eggins to adopt the minutes from our last meeting. Roll call vote. Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest. Yes. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries.
Will the chairwoman please read the hearing rules, the special hearing rules for adoption?
Sure. Special public hearing rules for Board of Zoning Adjustments hearings held via video conference. Order of business. The order of business at the hearing shall be as follows. Call to order and roll call with recording of members present. Approval of minutes. Reading and adoption of the hearing rules. Presentation of dockets, which include staff presentation, applicant presentation, and questions from members. Then recess for 30 minutes. Then consideration of dockets, which includes public comment, rebuttal by applicant, questions from members, and voting, followed by adjournment. Presentation of dockets. The order of business for each docket shall be as follows. Presentation by the City Planning Commission staff or the Department of Safety and Permit staff. Presentation by the applicant or their representative. The appellant or applicant may appear on their behalf or be represented by a duly authorized agent. Only one representative may speak on behalf of a request and must pre-register with the staff of the City Planning Commission. Other representatives or speakers may sign up to provide comments during the public comment portion of the meeting. The applicant shall be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. Questions from members. The members have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff or applicant. Recess. The board shall take a 30-minute recess to allow members of the public to submit comments. Public comment. Rules. Only written public comment will be allowed. Live public comment will not be allowed. No member of the public may submit more than one written comment per agenda item. Time allowed for public comment. The public comment form will be made available at the start of the meeting and will close at the end of the 30-minute recess. Form. Public comments must be submitted electronically on the form provided by the City Planning Commission. Any comment missing this information will not be read aloud. Each submission must contain the commenter's first and last name, the commenter's address, whether the commenter is being paid in connection with his or her comments, and the agenda item. Reading of public comments. A moderator will read into the record all comments pertaining to that item that have been submitted in accordance with these rules. Comments will be read aloud in a normal speaking voice. The moderator will discontinue reading a comment once it exceeds 2 minutes. Rebuttal by applicant. Following the public comment period, if there is opposition, the authorized representative of the application is allowed a rebuttal not to exceed 5 minutes. Questions from members. Following the public comment and rebuttal, the members have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff or applicant. Voting, making a motion. The member making a motion shall clearly state their name when making a motion. For example, I, Candace Forrest, move to approve or deny the request. Seconding a motion. The member seconding a motion shall clearly state their name when seconding the motion. For example, I, Candace Forrest, second the motion made by the other member. Statement by chair. The chair will restate the motion confirming who made and seconded the motion. Voting. The chair will request a verbal vote from each member by roll call. Each member will indicate yea to vote in support of the motion or nay to vote in opposition. This concludes the special meeting rules.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, would the board make a motion to adopt the special hearing rules?
Todd James, so move.
Ramiro Diaz, second.
It's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz to approve the special meeting rules. Roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest, yes. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries.
Thank you. In accordance with the adopted hearing rules, the public comment form link is available on the city's website, as well the city's Granicus website, as well as at nola.gov/CPC under announcements. It will be available until the end of recess, after which public comments will be read into the record as part of the consideration of dockets. As a reminder to applicants, action that the board takes today will be released in the form of a disposition notice by March 25th and sent via email, mail, and posted on the One Stop app website. Requests that the board votes to approve must show compliance with any noted provisos before the case is finalized. Also, as a note to applicants, we will be keeping your videos off until it is your turn to present, at which point we'll request that you turn your video on if you wish. And item number 13, BZA docket 013-19 was withdrawn. We will now begin with the unfinished business for variances. The first item is item 1, BZA docket 00421 for a property located at 1123 Barone Street. Following the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present. Alec Adamick is signed up to speak on behalf of this application. This request is for variances from the provisions of Article 15, Section 15.3A1, Table 15-2, and Article 22, Section 22.4A, Table 22-1 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit the construction of a multifamily residence with insufficient lot area per dwelling unit and insufficient off-street parking. This application was heard by the BZA at the January 11th meeting and was deferred to give the applicant more time to develop and submit documentation showing the details of the project. Since that time, the applicant has not provided additional information for staff's review. However, the applicant has indicated that they are considering a different configuration of the site, which would likely require a subdivision and possibly the withdrawal and submittal of a new variance application. Therefore, the staff recommends a 30-day deferral of the request. Alec Adamick is signed up to speak on behalf of this application. You have 5 minutes to present. And it doesn't appear that Mr. Adamick is on the call. Valerie, and I think there was talk that they may not attend due to the deferral request. Valerie, have you been in communications with Mr. Adamick?
Can you
Do
hear
we
me
need to come back to this one? Oh, well, I see Valerie's.
now? Okay, yeah, my, I lost my connection for a moment there. Yeah, I don't believe that the applicant is planning to attend the meeting today because they're wanting to defer it anyway, so. Can y'all hear me?
From board members?
Okay.
Seeing none, we can go to the next item.
All right, the next item is item 2, BZA docket 010-21 for a property located at 939 Orleans Avenue. As a reminder, following the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present. Micah Lowenthal is signed up to speak on behalf of this application.
Yeah, BZA 01021 is a request for a variance from the provisions of Article 21, Section 21.6 EE1 of the CZO to permit the construction of a swimming pool with insufficient setback from the interior side lot line. Property is developed with a one-story single-family dwelling. The applicant is proposing to construct a swimming pool in the side yard on the Dauphine Street side of the lot. BZA 01021 was recommended for deferral at the February 1st meeting. Since the hearing, the applicant has submitted revised plans indicating that they're proposing to reduce the width of the swimming pool by 1 foot and the walkway by 1 foot. This change results in an extension of the side yard setback from 1 foot to 3 feet. However, the revised plans result in a pool that is 3 feet from the side lot line, which is deficient with the CZO requirements by 1 foot. Therefore, the staff recommendation is not changed, and therefore staff recommends denial of the requested variance.
And the applicant now has 5 minutes to present.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that I went back to the pool contractor and revised everything to give me a more symmetrical look and to move the pool closer away from the property line, even though it was uncontested and undisputed by anyone publicly or even direct neighbors. So I'm hoping that I can at least get the symmetrical look in my courtyard for the pool with a 7 foot wide and then 3 feet on either side. That's really all I can say.
Questions from board members? Seeing none, we can go to the next item.
All right, the next items are items 3, 4, 5, and 6, BZA dockets 018, 019, 020, and 020-21 for a property located at 1321 Calhoun Street. At its last meeting, the board voted to consolidate these items. We have 4 speakers signed up to speak on behalf of these 4 applications. For BZA 018-21, we have Wogan Bernard. BZA 019-21, Donna Young. BZA 020-21, Wogan Bernard. And then BZA 021-21, Christy Trail. We also have Bob Ellis signed up to speak on behalf of the property owner. And following the safety and permit staff presentation, the applicants and the property owner's representative will each have 5 minutes to present. BZA dockets 018, 019, 020, and 021-21 appeal a decision of the director of the Department of Safety and Permits regarding the determination that the subject property has attained legal non-conforming status for a second principal structure. The Department of Safety and Permits now has an opportunity to present.
Good morning, board, and thank you. I'm Ashley Becknell, the Chief Zoning Official. I'm here to present the summary for 1321 Calhoun Street. As Emily said, these are 4 appeals that have been consolidated, all stem from a determination that there was a secondary principal structure on the property. So I will read through our statement of determination at this time. The Department of Safety and Permits did not err when it determined that the owners of the property at 1321 Calhoun had proven that a second principal structure existed on the property. The owners of 1321 Calhoun submitted an application to the department regarding a determination of nonconforming use for a second dwelling unit on the property on or around December 4th, 2019. After review of the evidence available, the department determined that the property had not attained legal nonconforming status as a second principal structure for one reason: a lack of evidence that the rear structure included a full dwelling unit with culinary facilities. This decision turned on the fact that photos did not depict an oven in the kitchen of the second dwelling unit. Because dwelling units are required by the CZO to have permanent provisions for cooking, this fact proved fatal to the owner's request for consideration as a second principal structure. Subsequently, the owners of 1321 Calhoun asked the department to reevaluate its determination. In the intervening time, the department issued Zoning and Interpretation Memorandum Z-2002. That memorandum expanded the type of evidence that the department could use to determine whether something had previously been used as a dwelling unit. It states, "It is the interpretation of this department that permanent provisions for cooking, as described in CZO 26.3, shall include any permanent provision for cooking capabilities, including but not limited to the presence of operational gas lines to the kitchen area of the alleged dwelling unit or the inclusion of an oven or range. In certain cases, the presence of a range outlet in the kitchen may be sufficient to show that permanent provisions for cooking were present, but those cases will be determined individually based on the facts presented. This could include if they are able to document that someone was living in the alleged dwelling unit." Under this memorandum, the department reconsidered the applicant's request to confirm the presence of a second principal structure on the site. Based on the following evidence, the department determined this time that the evidence showed that there was a second principal structure on the property and verified same. 1, an affidavit from the property owner stating that the second structure had been used as a dwelling unit since the 1960s, that she personally lived in the unit in the 1970s, and that the unit has had a gas stove since its conversion to residential use. 2, a log showing received rent payments. 3, copies of mail and utility bills. And 4, insurance documentation showing repairs to the rear structure, including repairs to the gas line to the kitchen. The documentation shows that the rear structure has had gas service to the kitchen area for several years. Two-family dwelling use is a permitted use in the HURD2 zoning district. However, there may not be two principal structures on the property, i.e. two separate structures, each containing a separate dwelling unit, unless certain requirements are met. Those requirements are articulated in CZO 21.4.A.4. In the HURD1 and HURD2 districts, more than one principal building may be permitted on a lot of record, provided that historical authentication can verify the historical existence of more than one principal building on such lot, and provided further that such information can be properly documented to the Department of Safety and Permits, and when applicable, the HDLC. All such buildings and appurtenances require the approval of the Department of Safety and Permits, and when applicable, the HDLC. The Department of Safety and Permits has verified the historical existence of a second principal building on this lot as detailed above, and therefore its ongoing use as a two-family dwelling with two principal structures is permitted. The department would like to address several specific arguments raised in the appeals. Ms. Edmonds argues that because this is a non-conforming use determination, the owner must furnish a notarized affidavit indicating that the property has not been vacant for a period of 6 months or longer. The department agrees that this is critical evidence for non-conforming uses, which are abandoned after 6 months of non-use. This determination is that the property has historically authenticated the presence of more than one principal structure on the lot. Abandonment is not an issue in these cases, and therefore this affidavit is not necessary. Similarly, Mr. and Mrs. Sayre argue that the nonconformity has been abandoned since the structure has been vacant. As explained above, abandonment is not relevant to the determination of whether a second structure on a lot has attained status as a secondary principal structure. Many parties argue that the structure has been impermissibly enlarged. The department has placed a stop work order on the building in order to require the applicant to submit updated plans and to ensure that these plans are in accordance with the requirements for secondary principal structures. Under 21.4.8.2, each principal structure must comply with all bulk and yard requirements of the district as if it were a principal building on an individual lot. The department is working with the applicant to understand whether any structural nonconformities exist, such as the building having an insufficient setback, and to ensure that any renovation plans, do not violate the CZO. The Audubon Area Zoning Association argues that the NCU determination of November 2020 was granted despite the objections of neighbors and without notice to neighbors. The text of the zoning ordinance directs the department to review the documentation of historical existence of a secondary principal structure on the lot. This is not a legislative decision, rather it is an executive function of the Department of Safety and Permits in enforcing and interpreting the zoning ordinance. Similarly, notice of this decision in advance is not required. However, the decision was available, as are all decisions of this nature, on the One Stop app at onestopapp.nola.gov and through the city's Notice Me system for interested parties. The department understands that there are permitting issues with this project and for that reason has issued a stop work order and has not issued a revised renovation permit. These issues are raised by many applicants and the department takes them very seriously. As stated above, we are currently deeply examining the proposed scope of work related to the second principal structure to make sure it conforms with the zoning ordinance completely and that any aspects which do not comply must be removed or must be approved through the variance process. Given this, these appeals should be denied and the department's decision as appealed on the issue of whether the structure has been properly historically authenticated as a secondary principal structure should be upheld. I'd also like to add just a couple of brief points in response to some of the supplemental information submitted by the appellants. I would like to summarize that reevaluation of a decision is an appropriate and customary step taken by the Department of Safety and Permits. Interpretations may evolve based on any number of factors, and the change in leadership can also affect the interpretation presented, as it is the purview of the Director of Safety and Permits. And just wanted to say that we understand that this matter is being litigated and welcome input on this thorny and complex issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Logan Bernard is signed up to speak on BZA 018-21. You now have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning. My name is Logan Bernard, 1100 40th Street, Suite 2300, New Orleans. Attorney Jack McCall, and I've been asked to speak on behalf of John and Kathleen Sayre. I want to make reference to the materials provided in support of their position, particularly the letters dated January 22nd, 2021 and March 8th, 2021, and the related exhibits attached thereto. It is our position that the Department of Safety and Permits erred in the determination both substantively and procedurally. Given the short amount of time, I want to focus on the substantive errors, as I believe the other appellants will address the procedural issues. It is our position that the structure at issue is an accessory structure that had a non-conforming use, and that use was lost after 180 days of non-use per the CZO. Safety and Permits has ruled that the 180-day abandonment non-use provision does not apply because, quote, the property has historically authenticated the presence of more than one principal structure on the lot. So let's look at the structure. The CZO defines principal structure as a building where the principal use of a lot is conducted. Principal structure, you have to look at the principal use. What does principal use mean? The CZO defines principal use as, quote, the main or primary purpose for which a structure or lot is designed, arranged, or intended. This is important. The main or primary purpose for which a structure is designed, or arranged, or intended. So let's look at the primary purpose that this structure was designed, arranged, or intended. The building at issue appears on the 1909 Sanborn maps as an accessory structure, a garage. It again appears on 1951 Sanborn maps as a garage accessory structure. It's undisputed that this building was historically, since at least 1909, designed, arranged, or intended to be used as an accessory structure. In fact, go look at the Sanborn maps. Find me a property in the area when these homes and neighborhoods were developed that had more than one principal structure. You can't, because historically, they all only had one, not two. And further, if you look at all the evidence supplied, the historical history of the property and neighborhood, the permanent history of the property, everybody, including the owners, until the most recent safety and permanent determination, referred to the structure as an accessory structure. So what changed? The structure didn't change. It's still there from 1909, and it's still a conforming structure on the code as an accessory structure. So what changed? The use changed. At some point, probably in the 1960s, the structure apparently went from being a garage to being used as a dwelling unit, but the evidence really submitted by the owners really only goes back the last 10 to 15 years. This is where Safety and Permits has erred. You can't ignore decades of a building history and how it was clearly designed, arranged, or intended, and determine that a building built as an accessory garage is now historically a principal dwelling unit. That's just disingenuous. But safety permits knew that the only way to circumvent the issue of the 180-day abandonment was to characterize the building as a non-conforming structure. This is incorrect. The facts and evidence clearly show that the garage is an accessory structure that lost a non-conforming use. I have another client who has a garage in the same zoning district with gas hookups. Based on how safety permits interpret this determination, he can't wait to seek the same determination so he can use his garage as short-term rental, and he checks all the same boxes of safety permits using this analysis. If you think the neighbors are upset now, wait until short-term rentals start popping up in old garages and accessory structures, which can now be deemed as principal dwelling units. Doesn't make sense. In conclusion, safety permits erred in determining that this garage was historically a principal structure. The property's history is used for over half a century, and the evidence submitted in simple common sense shows that this structure is an accessory garage which lost a rental use when it was abandoned for over 180 days. For these reasons and the same additional reasons that the other three applicants will address, Mr. and Mrs. Sarah respectfully ask the BZA to overturn the recent determination made by the Department of Safety and Permits and acknowledge that this building is truly an accessory structure that has lost a non-conforming use. In sum, the initial determination by Zach Smith got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Young is signed up to speak on behalf of BZA 019-21. You now have 5 minutes to present.
Good morning. I'm speaking on behalf of Karen Edmonds, and I'm going to address the procedural aspect, which I know Ms. Becknell touched upon, but it's really important here for the process and why we're here. This determination denying NCU was signed on January 2nd, 2020. Notice of that denial was emailed directly to the owners, the Kovalevskis, and the Kovalevskis were specifically advised they had 45 days to appeal because that's what the CZO says they have. And in response, 20 minutes after that email went out from the department, the Kovalevskis representative, Jeffrey Shello, who was copied as well as the Kovalevskis on the email, was questioning the denial. And so clearly they got notice of the denial. They failed to appeal. So then what happened, 8 months went by, no activity. Then the Kovalevskis retained Bob Ellis, a former colleague of Director Jackson and a former coworker, I understand, of Ashley Becknell, who basically wrote several emails, which emails that we've attached here as exhibits, starting asking for a reevaluation, which is not proper. And then when he got no response, and I won't belabor the point since I only have 5 minutes, but when he didn't have response to that September 4th, 2020 email asking for a reevaluation, in October, he started threatening the department. And specifically, he said, I have authority to sue the city and I want a response by tomorrow. That's one of the emails. That's Exhibit 11. The next email on October 23rd, Ellis writes Team NOLA, and this time specifically threatens to sue the city and suggests to the department, and I quote, he says, a better path would be for the department to issue an opinion, hopefully this time more thought out. And more importantly, in that email to the department, he represents to the city that his clients never received notice of the denial, an absolute falsehood. Because we know on January 16th, Exhibit 5 to our March 8th letter, the Kovalevskis specifically received notice of the denial. Their representative 20 minutes later acknowledged that receipt, and they were advised to appeal within 45 days. Now, curiously, Ms. Becknell says they decided in the intervening, and I believe the department's summary report from the February 8th meeting, it says in the intervening time, the department issued zoning interpretation memo. Well, the department did issue a zoning interpretation memo, but curiously, it wasn't in the intervening time. Ellis asked for a reevaluation, threatened to sue the city, demanded a response, and the department issued a response reversing the denial and granting NCU on November 10th, 2020. The interpretation was not made until 20 days later. If you look at the interpretation, November 30th, 2020. So we don't know what's going on, but on its own and at the request of Bob Ellis, they've reevaluated without an appeal. They've rendered a reversal on November 10th. And then after the fact, to justify the reversal, the department issued the zoning interpretation 20 days after the reversal on November 10th. The CZO is clear. An aggrieved party has 45 days from the date of the determination to appeal.
Morning.
That's what my client did. That's what everybody did here.
Yeah, I muted this bullshit. I'm in a city hearing, but I've already presented.
Is somebody talking?
Oh.
Okay, I'll hurry up then, not to lose my 5 minutes. The CZO is clear. You have 45 days to appeal. Kovalevsky's received notice, failed to appeal. This is going to open a Pandora's box for every aggrieved party that I might represent in the future and that anybody might represent. If we just write to the department 8 months later, 2 years later, and say, hey, you know what? You really need to reevaluate this. And if you have to, maybe issue an interpretation. But we need to get this reversed. And guess what it does? It takes the BCA completely out of the process. And so the Kovalevskys received proper notice. Their only remedy was to appeal, and they failed to do so. And therefore, the December 2019 determination denying NCU should be reinstated. And this November 10th appeal, reversing it without an appeal and only an informal request to reevaluate, should be invalidated, and our appeal should stand here, because otherwise people like me and other attorneys, other property owners are going to just circumvent the BCA and go directly back to permits and make their arguments via email and get the reversal that they want. And I don't think that's what the BZA or the CZO requires here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We now have Logan Bernard signed up to speak on BZA 020-21. You have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you, Emily. It's me again. Mr. Kiefer had a conflict this morning, and so knowing that he had asked me to speak. The Kiefers adopt the previous arguments made by the Sayers and Ms. Edmonds in support of their appeal. And I just want to briefly piggyback on what Ms. Young just talked about, the procedural issues. Because the procedural issues are pretty significant here, and how the BZA rules on this matter will have ramifications not only to this property, but how determinations and appeals are, I think, will be handled in the future. If the BZA upholds the department's determination and rubber stamps this re-review process that took place here, you in fact will gut your own authority, your own review authority given to you under the charter and code. So let's play this out. I'm an attorney, Ms. Young's an attorney, Mr. Ellis is an attorney. We all represent developers and submit both zoning and use determinations on behalf of different clients. And if the current ruling is upheld, we and others will use this as a precedent to seek re-reviews and circumvent the appeals process. I mean, in this case, Nick Kindle instructed the owners in writing to appeal. That's undisputed. They didn't appeal, and yet safety and permits accommodated them 8 months later. I mean, going forward, I might as well tell my client, my other additional clients, don't appeal. Save your $250. Let's come up with more evidence. Let's submit some re-reviews. Let's work behind the public forum. Let's see if we can get what we want. As the department stated in writing, and Ms. Beckman said a little bit earlier ago today, they don't have to include public comments in making determinations. Here's what happened in this case. The neighbors, the ones all upset, the appeal, the ones that all put public comments in opposition, they were engaged in this development. An initial determination was made. The neighbors counted 45 days for the owners to appeal. The 45 days came and went, and so the neighbors rightly assumed that the property lost the determination that the Kovalevskys were seeking. You all would have been in the same position. You all would have assumed the same thing. You can only imagine, to the neighbor's surprise, when one of them just happened to go look on one stop and saw a new determination. Had they not even seen that, they wouldn't have the chance to appeal. By rubber stamping what was done here, you have gutted the public comment and gutted the power to listen and protect the neighbors that the BZA's, part of the BZA's job is to do. I guarantee you there will be more re-review requests and what the safety and permits will know what to do with. On another note, I think this creates a legal quagmire for the Department of Safety and Permits. Clearly in this case, the department determined that Kovalevskys didn't need to follow the appeal procedure that everyone else had to do. Why are they so special? Why after they get notice to, hey, look, you need to appeal 45 days, but later they say, no, don't worry about that. We'll just re-review it. And what happens when I file a re-review in the future on another matter for another client? The department tells me no. they're going to have to then defend why one applicant deserves to be treated differently than another applicant. By approving the determination, you will be approving really a new procedure that will undoubtedly create litigation and open the city up for damages that I know it's in no one's best interest. Many of us who are in the business of land use and who represent developers are looking at this heat matter, this appeal, as a precedent that you set, and a precedent you set, because I promise you, we will use it to the advantage of our clients and to the detriment of the city, and ultimately to avoid, neighbors and then complain about what type of developments that, our clients wanted to do. It's a big deal. And I just want to share with you my thoughts and ramifications that this appeal really has. This whole re-review procedure was done incorrectly. In order for you to protect the authority of the BZA and its review process over safety and permits, the appeal should be upheld and the due determination overturned. For these reasons and the same reasons provided by the other applicants, the keepers respectfully request the BZA overrule the department's determination. Thank you.
Thank you. And we now have Christy Trail signed up to speak on behalf of BZ 021-21. You have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak today on the property at 1321 Calhoun Street. I am currently the president of the Ottoman Area Zoning Association. AAZA's mission is to promote the safe, quiet, family-friendly ambiance that is the hallmark of the neighborhood, to preserve the aesthetic character of the neighborhood, to promote the understanding of zoning, building code, and other regulations, and to ensure that the regulations are properly adhered to promote neighborliness and encourage a friendly association among neighborhood residents, and to be an instrument of political liaison and to represent the views and interests of its members to elected officials, government entities, and with other neighborhood associations and community organizations. It is for these reasons that AAZA is weighing in on this matter. There is little doubt that the rear structure on this property had been used as a dwelling unit. Many of the letters that BZA received in opposition of this appeal have stated the rear structure was used, but this is not the basis of our appeal. The appeal is regarding the fact that the property owner seeks to have this property rezoned for 2 individual structures, zoned for 2 single-family dwellings on 1 lot. Ms. Becknell stated that the current zoning does allow 2 separate principal dwelling units on the property, but AAZA disagrees with this assessment. Further, the argument is that the rear structure on this property is grandfathered in because it has been used as a separate apartment for a long time. However, it has not been used in this fashion for well over 180 days. So we, the Neighborhood Association, are appealing this NCU on this basis. There have been several letters submitted to oppose this appeal from co-workers of the current property owner. Of the 30 submissions, only 1 of them lives in the bounds of AAZA. Additionally, 2 letters were submitted that simply state that the rear structure was an apartment at one time. Again, this is not a point of dispute. AAZA understands that it is possible for the city to reevaluate their decisions based on information received, but AAZA also asks that the BZA consider the large amount of letters from surrounding neighbors that do not support this rezoning. Further, the current conditions of both structures, which are dilapidated, unoccupied, the lot is overgrown, along with some serious code violations. It's quite an eyesore for our beautiful neighborhood. AAZA has also noticed extensive changes to the structure, most recently the fact that there's a stop work order, and yet significant work occurred on the structure in the month of February 2021. More than 50% of the previous structure has been altered. The rear structure is no longer the historical structure and is only now a new structure. So I ask that you please take a look at this property and measure the alterations that have been made within the past few months. It is unclear to AAZA why this property is allowed to remain in such a state of disrepair for such an extended period of time. I appreciate your consideration for an appeal on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. The property owner's representative, Bob Ellis, now has 5 minutes to present.
And thank you, commissioners. First of all, I'd like to start off by stating, if you've been involved in land use as long as the appellant counsel's head, then they would know that a rezoning determination is not something unheard of, or nor does it circumvent this commission's authority, because as a parent, we're right back in front of you. The appellants were allowed to come forth and challenge the NCU determination, which was made after secondary evidence was presented, which wasn't presented initially because they didn't have counsel. They did it themselves through a contractor, which I want to bring to the attention of the BCA, which I think is very important, is the notice. When I stated that they didn't get notice, they didn't get notice that was appropriate. A notice letter, when it has appellate deadlines, needs to say you have 45 days to appeal. They never got that notice that said you had 45 days to appeal. So many representation otherwise is just not correct. It didn't happen. In fact, the date of the original NCU happened a few days after the cyber attack. So when they talk about an email that was sent out, I don't know how it happened, because the city was without email for quite some time. And I think everyone on this, at least this commission, is aware of that. I will start off with the association talking about a rezoning. This isn't a rezoning. This is a determination, and I'm glad they had finally admitted, which they didn't do the first time, that the second building was actually a secondary dwelling unit, because it actually is the first time that they've conceded the fact that the building was a residence. And that is exactly what Safety and Permits found and what Ms. Becknell's report found. They found that there were gas utilities, which, if you'll recall from the last hearing, the neighbor said there were no gas utilities. I've submitted pictures of gas utilities, stove, water heater, etc. That is what the city said. Look, this is proof that there is actually a dwelling unit. I don't understand when they say the property's overgrown. I walked it last week. It was fine. The stop work order is a bit of confusion. There was a stop work order issued for the secondary building, not the first. They have continued to do a restoration on the first part of the property. However, the confusion with the stop work order has caused them to stop work several times. The reason this project's been delayed is because the 4 neighbors that are surrounding are causing all the problems. 30 people have submitted affidavits in support of my client's project to restore the project. 30 to the 4 neighboring neighbors who are against it. Those 4 contend that they were never involved in the process. That is absolutely not true. The contractor brought them there. They walked the property together and discussed the matter. So it's completely disingenuous now through council, because they're not here today, but through council saying that they weren't involved. That's just not true either. It is a classic he said, she said that is already in the courts, because Karen Edmonds' counsel sued my client to tear down the building, which is what they want. They just want the building torn down, which is interesting because all of the neighbors have an identical building doing the exact same thing. I just don't understand why they don't want it, except for the fact they tried buying the property and my client refused to sell it because it is the home of her family. Like literally family members were born there. I know I'm limited to time they got like 20 minutes, but I guess since they've conceded that it was a dwelling unit, let's talk about the process. The redeterminations are used regularly. It's not the first time I've used it. I was upset that the notice requirement when they sent the notice, it didn't say they had 45 days. If they would have had 45 days, it would sought legal counsel before the time elapsed. It did. But we also provided information that showed that the original determination was factually incorrect, i.e. it didn't have culinary facilities. It always had culinary facilities. The pictures proved it. The gas lines proved it. The rent rolls proved it. The appraisal done by a third party in October of 2011 proved that there was people living there. We have pictures that we submitted in 2016, 2017, where people were living there. It just doesn't make any sense that they would continue to just they continue to lie to this commission, because that's exactly what they've done now. I would suggest to you that this process doesn't usurp any 180 days process whatsoever. The BZA as we're before you today can review any information to see if there was any error. I respectfully submit there wasn't any error. I think Ms. Bicknell did a very good job reviewing all the documentation. There was a lot more submitted, and there was a lot more arguments made and suggestions reviewed that before she made this determination. And I think that about covers all I can cover when the limited time. But I would suggest that this isn't a rubber stamping. You are allowed to review everything. You're allowed to see everything. You're hearing arguments of counsel. I would suggest to you that the NCU, that redetermination done by Ms. Becknell is correct. It should stand. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from board members? Seeing none, we can go to the next item. BZA,
Excuse me. We'll now begin with the new business for variances. The next item is item 7, BZA docket 022-21 for property located at 1010 Melpomene Street. Curtis Doucette Jr. is signed up to speak on behalf of this application. Following the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present.
And, Emily, I just want to note, I have to recuse on this one. So I'm going to.
Thank you, Rami.
BZA 2221 is a request for a variance from the provisions of Article 11, Section 11.3A of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit the construction of a two-family residence within sufficient lot area. The subject property is a rectangular interior lot in Lower Garden District where it features 30 feet of frontage along Melpomene Street, a depth of 98 feet, and approximately 2,937 square feet of lot area. It is zoned HURD2, two-family residential district. The applicant, which is the Housing Authority of New Orleans, proposes construction of a two-story, two-family dwelling. In the HURD2 zoning district, the minimum lot area for a two-family dwelling is 1,800 square feet per dwelling unit, which is 3,600 square feet. The predominant historic development pattern is typical of pre-World War II neighborhoods. A survey of 302 lots located near the subject property and likewise zoned HURD2 and also contain residential uses revealed that 35% of those lots contain less than 3,600 square feet, and 30% of those lots are developed with two-family dwellings. It should be noted, however, that the subject property size is a direct result of a recently approved re-subdivision that was requested by the applicant, and that at 2,937 square feet, it meets all the minimum dimensional requirements for a single-family dwelling. Staff finds that the requested variance fails to meet 2 of the 9 criteria for approval as put forth in the CZO article in the CZO at Article 4, Section 4.6F, Standards for Variances, and that the condition for which the variance is sought was created by the applicant, and that adherence to property regulations will not result in a demonstrable hardship. Accordingly, the staff recommends denial of BZA docket 2221.
Thank you. Curtis Doucette Jr., you now have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you. And thank you to the board for hearing this. So what we're asking for is a variance to create more affordable housing. This is part of a larger project which brings 110 units of mixed income housing. 70% of that is going to be affordable to high opportunity neighborhoods of uptown New Orleans. And this is on Housing Authority of New Orleans land, and it will continue to be owned by Hano. Iris will have a 99-year ground lease. This is in line with the city's goal of utilizing its resources, such as agency-owned land, to address the city's affordable housing crisis. I'd like to address the 2 conditions that the report says we didn't meet. The first condition is that it was, well, the first one is that the condition was created by the applicant. I'd like to note that this does comply with the minimum width of 30 feet, this subdivision. The lot is not as deep as the other 2 lots. There's 2 lots next door that are 4,500 square feet each. They are 30 by 150. And this lot just happens to be a little bit shorter. If you were to combine all 3 of those lots, which are going to be used to produce 3 duplexes, 6 units, you're looking at 11,936 square feet. So so individually, each unit then is taking up 3,978 square feet. So that's more than the required 3,600 square feet if you look at it that way. The parking for this unit, which is not necessarily required when you have a lot that's 30 feet in width, it will be provided, however, on the adjacent sites. So, and and technically, if you were to count that parking space as well as the driveway space, if you were to take it proportionally, that would more than cover the difference. What else? The plan is, it should be noted on page 27 that we have a support letter from the Lower River Garden District Association. We've met with the community several times. They support this plan, which is, again, it's part of a broader plan even on this site, which is to bring 3 duplexes, so that's six rentals, 3 homes for sale, and that's 2 permanently affordable through the Crescent City Community Land Trust partnership. And these 9 units that we're proposing is significantly less density than that was originally on the site, which is 21 units previously owned by Hano. And then the other point is that there was no hardship demonstrated. So what this does cause is economic hardship. It's always difficult to make affordable housing projects pencil. Some agency lenders will not lend on a site that has less than 6 units. And again, remember, this is part of a larger project. None of those other sites have fewer than 6 units for that reason. So we would also lose economies of scale that makes it more difficult to finance it. And then the recommendation would result in, the report says 1 fewer, but the truth of it, at least 2 fewer, if not all of those sites not being able to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? Seeing none, we can go to the next item.
Good morning. BZA 2321 is an after-the-fact request for a variance from the provisions of Article 13, Section 13.3.A.1, Table 13-2 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to permit the completion of a 2-family residence on a lot with insufficient lot area and insufficient lot width. The site in question is located in an SRD suburban 2-family residential district in the Gentilly neighborhood. The subject property fronts London Avenue, which runs parallel to the London Outfall Canal. The subject lot, Lot C, is rectangular in shape, measuring 40 feet in width and 120 feet in depth, with 4,800 square feet in area. The applicant acquired the subject property, which has been undeveloped for several decades, in August 2020. The applicant submitted an application for a building permit from the Department of Safety and Permits for a single-story 2-family dwelling to the in October 2020. These plans were approved on November 11th, and the applicant began construction on the proposed dwelling soon thereafter. Those plans are the same as those considered in this application. A stop work order was issued after Safety and Permits identified the proposal is not compliant with zoning regulations for this district. The subject lot is deficient in regard to width by 10 feet and lot area by 200 square feet, according to Section 13.2, Table 13-1 of the CZO for a 2-family dwelling. The applicant reports that the framing, roofing, siding, and plumbing have been completed on the site at the time of the stop work order, at the time that the stop work order was issued. And staff estimates the development is at least 50% complete at this time based on a site visit. The applicant is applying for this variance in order to complete the project, which was initiated in good faith, having received building permits from the Department of Safety and Permits. In addition to the special condition of detrimental reliance related to this case, staff finds the proposed development meets the standards for approval of a variance. Out of the 55 surveyed properties in the immediate vicinity, staff determined that more than half are also 2-family dwellings, but most properties in the area are not large enough, or most lots in the area are not large enough to accommodate a 2-family dwelling under current regulations. Over 90% of nearby properties occupied by a 2-family dwelling are situated on a property which is deficient in lot width, and approximately 64% are situated on lots that are insufficient in area. Considering the applicant's efforts to obtain proper permitting prior to construction, the substantial hardship revocation of this right would present, and the fact this request meets the 9 approval standards, staff recommends approval of this variance request subject to 2 provisos.
Thank you. We have Wong Do signed up to speak on behalf of this application. You have 5 minutes to present.
Good morning. How are you? So I think I think the outline is very correct. So before we start the renovation or the build, we got the proper permit as needed. It was approved, and we start, and we got stopped. I mean, we in a tough situation because of the fact that before we start the build, we got some hot loan lending money, which is at a very high interest. And with the stop work order, it's become a major problem for us because we have 6 months to basically for the loan, and now we basically kind of eat up more than 4 months now. So we have 2 months left. So I hope the board would consider this, approve it, and would allow us to go back to work as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? Seeing none, we can go to the next item.
Thank you. The next item is item 9, BZA docket 024-21 for a property located at 2631 Urquhart Street. Paolo Diniz is signed up to speak on behalf of this application. Following the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present.
BZA docket 02421 is for a property located at 2631 Urquhart Street. This is a request for a variance in conjunction with subdivision docket number 123-20 to permit the creation of a lot with insufficient lot width. Article 11, Section 11.3A1, Table 11-2A requires a minimum lot area of 30 feet in lot width. The applicant is proposing 25.75 feet and is requesting a waiver of 4.25 feet. The staff believes that the request does satisfy the 9 criteria as they pertain to the requested variance. Therefore, the staff recommends approval subject to 4 provisions.
Thank you. Paolo is signed up to speak on behalf of the application. You have 5 minutes to present.
Good morning, board members. Thank you for hearing my case. I had a few questions here on the staff recommendation as far as the provisos. The finalizing of the SD docket and recording this, if approved, to the Office of Conveyances, where is that done and how do I go about doing that?
Yeah, we will give you instructions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, once if it's approved, we'll provide instructions for you.
And everything else, all the 4 requirements as far as submitting some revised drawings on everything that you requested throughout this process, that's very easy to do. I can do that right away. And restoring the sidewalks, that would be naturally we would do that if there's any damage or if we need to improve any sidewalks during construction, that would also be accomplished. And as far as planting trees, that was always in our plan. We love to beautify the neighborhood and do whatever we can to improve the curb appeal and also make improvements to the neighborhood.
Is that the end of your comments, sir?
Pardon me?
Is that the end of your comments?
Yes. Oh, I did have one more question. Since this variance hearing is based on lot 8A becoming more non-conforming than it was before, and lot 9A became conforming. So if lot 8A is approved, automatically 9A is also approved, and I could go forward with permitting for both structures.
I believe the application is only for the initial lot. I don't know if staff would be able to speak on any additional lots of record if they're not part of this application.
If I'm understanding the question correctly, I believe that he's asking, are you asking about the subdivision application?
Yes, I was told or read in one of your emails that the approval of the subdivision would be granted only if the variance on the lot we're speaking of now of 2631 were approved.
Correct. So yeah, that's correct. So the question is, would the subdivision be approved? This is a contingency for the subdivision to be approved. So if this is approved, then the subdivision will be approved. If that
Okay.
answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
I can't hear.
Sorry, I was on mute. Are there any other
Okay.
questions or comments from board members?
No, I think that's it. Just hope that.
Sorry, I'm directing to the board. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll
That's okay. Board members, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we can go to the next item.
The next item is item 10, BZA docket 025-21 for a property located at 6007 Bullard Avenue. Blake Weatherly is signed up to speak on behalf of this application. Following the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present.
This request is for variances from the provisions of Article 15, Section 15.3A1, Table 15.2, Article 15, Section 15.3A2, and Article 18, Section 18.16B3, Article 21, Section 21.5C1, Article 22, Section 22.8B2, and Article 22, Section 22.11B to permit a fast food restaurant with excessive front yard setback, parking as a predominant visual element, excessive exterior lighting height, permitted vehicle parking locations, and excessive curb cuts. The applicants are proposing to rebuild an old Taco Bell at a currently vacant site on top of an existing slab with existing parking area and light poles. By attempting to utilize the existing site as previously developed, the applicants require variances for an excessive front yard setback of 28.16 feet, a front yard built in line at 28.16 feet, parking as the predominant design element, exterior lighting with an excess of 2 feet in height, 4 parking spaces that are prohibited between the street and front facade of the building, and 2 non-compliant curb cuts with excessive width resulting in waivers of 3.13 feet and 1.68 feet. Staff believes the 7 requested variances fail to meet 7 of the 9 criteria of the standard variances of Article 4, in that there are no special circumstances which are peculiar to the land. Literal interpretation of the ordinance will not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the district. The special circumstances were caused by the applicant. The variance will confer on the applicant special privileges. The property regulations will not result in a demonstrable hardship. The change is exclusively for the convenience and profit of the owner, and the variance will be detrimental to public welfare. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the requested variances.
Thank you. Blake Weatherly is signed up to speak on behalf of this application. You now have 5 minutes to present.
Thank you, Aspen. I'm having a little bit of video issue here. It seems like I'm locked out of it, but as you said, thank you, ma'am. This existing site here is completely existing. And during Katrina, this was a Taco Bell site. It was set up exactly the way we have it set now. What we're wanting to do is reuse the existing foundation, existing parking, everything that Ms. Aspen did present to you is exactly correct. We do have a variance request of about 3 feet on the curb cuts. That's existing driveways coming in and to off the road. We do have an existing setback of approximately 48 feet. That not only is existing foundation of what we were reused during the rebuild, but it also matches the adjacent structures of to the left and to the right of this facility. Right now, the KFC to the west is a KFC Taco Bell. The Taco Bell will redirect to this location as it was before Katrina took it out and it was destroyed. We've done traffic studies for this site, no traffic impact to this. The biggest thing is right now you have big mature trees on this site. You have an existing parking lot that's set up to handle this. It's set up in conformance to what was the code and to what the adjacent structures are. Matches the appeal. If we were to go in and meet the current code with the parking lot, we would have to take out the big mature landscaping, remove concrete just to put the concrete back down, and redo the foundation. So we're requesting a variance for this. There is an economic impact to this due to the foundation, the cost of it. I've spoken with the owners, developers. This will not be developed if we have to redo that foundation because of economic impact to the project. So if, to my latest knowledge, if this variance is not approved, this site will remain as is until a future tenant comes into play. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? Seeing none, we can go to the next item.
We will now begin with the new business for Director of Safety and Permits decision appeals. The next item is item 11, BZA docket 026-21 for a property located at 937 Henry Clay Avenue. This is an appeal of a decision of the Director of the Department of Safety and Permits regarding the issuance of a stop work order associated with permit number 20-38467-RDRV. The applicant has indicated they intend to request deferral. We have Margaret Glass signed up to speak on behalf of the applicant / property owner. Following the safety and permits staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present.
Before safety and permits begins, oh, never mind. I see you muted the other applicant. Just wanted to make sure. Thanks. I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
The Department of Safety and Permits has an opportunity to present.
Good morning. Sorry about the delay. I thought Ashley was going to present this one. So yeah, it'll just be a quick presentation. My name is Nick Kindle. I'm the zoning administrator with the Department of Safety and Permits. This is the applicant appealing the issuance of a stop work order related to 937 Henry Clay Avenue. It's the understanding of the Department of Safety and Permits that the applicant in this appeal intends to request a deferral of this matter. The Safety and Permits does not object to this request. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Glass, the representative for the applicant, has an opportunity to present. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, this is Margaret Glass here on behalf of the applicant, Stephen and Caroline Young, and we are requesting a deferral to the next BZA meeting.
You didn't have any other comments?
No other comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, we can go to the next item.
We will now begin with new business for a restoration permit for an extension request. The next item is item 12, BZA docket 027-21 for property located at 2372 Constant Street and 935 First Street. This request is for an extension for a restoration permit associated with the destruction of a structure containing a non-conforming use to allow for a 1-year extension. We have Joel Ross signed up to speak on behalf of this application. You have 5 minutes to present.
Hi there. This is a simple extension of a year. Basically, most of my projects, I would say, are delayed due to COVID. We had 2 subcontractors break out with COVID-19 during this project. And yes, it's taken longer than we expected. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, we can go to the next item.
All right, item number 13, BZA 013-20-19 was withdrawn by the applicant. So this concludes the presentation of dockets portion of the meeting. The board will now recess until 11:45. Consideration of dockets, including public comments, will begin at 11:45. Please refer to the screen for public comment rules. Public comments will be accepted until the close of recess. Would the board consider a motion to recess until 11:45?
Todd James, so moves.
Ramiro Diaz will second.
It's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz to recess for 30 minutes. Roll vote, Todd James,
Yay.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest, yes. 6 yeas, no nays. We're now in recess until 11:45.
Madam Chair, if you could acknowledge, we now have a personal best record for the board of getting to lunch early today.
Let's see what the record looks like by the end of the day. All right, we'll see you all at 11:45. Thank you.
All right, looks like we have quorum. So would the board consider a motion to return from recess?
Todd James so moves.
For a second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who's second.
Jose Alvarez.
Oh, thanks. It's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Alvarez to return from recess. A roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest. Yes, 6 yeas, no nays. We're back from recess.
Thank you. The public comment forum is now closed. We'll begin the consideration of dockets and the public comment portion of the meeting. And I think we are expecting the public comment document to be emailed momentarily. All right, while Valerie prepares to send that document, we'll begin with the unfinished business for variances. The first item is BZA docket 004-21 for a property located at 1123 Barone Street. This request is for variances to permit the construction of multifamily residence with insufficient lot area per dwelling unit and insufficient off-street parking. As a reminder to the board, the staff recommendation is for deferral at the applicant's request. There are no public comments for this first item. So the applicant does not need time for rebuttal. And I'll turn it over to the board for any questions.
Are there any questions, comments from board members? And Emily, this was one where there's a possibility that this may be withdrawn based on some different approaches that the applicant may be taking.
That's correct. What they've communicated to staff is they may end up expanding the site through a re-subdivision, so they would have to come back through anyway after redoing the NPP and all of that.
Okay.
And Chairwoman, if I remember correctly, this is one where we never received the revised plans. That there wasn't really much provided initially. So
correct.
If a motion's in order.
Yes. Are there any questions from board members? Proceed with your motion.
Madam Chair, I, Todd James, move to defer this item for 30 days at the request of the applicant for BZA docket number 004-21.
I'll second Ramiro. Yes.
Thank you. With regard to docket 004-21, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz to defer the matter 30 days at the request of the applicant. Roll vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest. Yes. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries.
Thank you. All right, the next item is item 2, BZA docket 010-21 for the property at 939 Orleans Avenue. This request is for a variance to permit the construction of a swimming pool with insufficient setback from the interior side lot line. As a reminder to the board, the staff recommendation is for denial. And it does not look like Valerie is about to send the public comments via email right now. So let's stay tuned for that.
And you said for this item, there weren't any, Emily? I didn't hear you.
That I don't know.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to arrive in my inbox.
Sure.
Yes, so we do have public comments for item number 2. I'm just about to send them now. I'm sorry about the wait here.
All right. Okay. Have you received them, Emily?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, go ahead and read these. So for item 2, we have received public comments. The first comment comes from Corey Bianchini in support of the application, address 734 Orleans Avenue. Comment reads as follows. I've known them for over 3 years now. They are great members of the community, and I fully support this application. All right. The next comment comes from Tanya Benandi at 933 Orleans Avenue in support of the application. Comment reads as follows. I have lived next to Micah and Jonathan for 3 years. I live directly next door and other neighbors have supported their variance and I do as well. Please approve it as it benefits the neighborhood as well as them personally. Next comment from Salvador Sal Scaccia, I'm sorry about the name pronunciation, 821 Perdido Street, Unit 3E, NOLA 70112. Comment is in support of the application. This design is thoughtful and will add great value to the house and the surrounding area. There is no reason to not approve this variance as shown. And that is the end of the public comments for item 2.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members?
Just a point of clarification. While I do appreciate public comment, we just have to make sure that we're articulating that the way that we review variances and waivers are not necessarily based on one person's benefit. We do have to keep it in accordance with the laws and guidelines that have been provided, especially when it takes into account how it may cause impacts on neighboring properties. While I understand the neighbor is showing a point of support, the CZO does take into effect how to mitigate conditions where if, let's say, I think I mentioned this in the last meeting, if we were to excavate this, if while this work was being done, if it was excavated and caused a detrimental condition on neighboring property, the point of liability stretches far. So we have to make sure that we're sticking within the guidelines and the rules that we have, because they're not just, the numbers are not just there and applied just for cause. There's some thought that goes into why we have these requirements and setbacks established.
Thank you. And just a question to the applicant. I was looking through through our report and I see a letter from the applicant, but was there something submitted to discuss the 9 criteria?
That's to staff or to the applicant?
To the applicant. Is the applicant on? I'm sorry.
The applicant is present.
Just make sure that you've unmuted him, because I think he was the one who had the outburst earlier.
He is unmuted.
Yeah, I guess I can answer that. They sent a letter to the board that's in the attachments, but they didn't go through the 9 criteria one by one.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking for. I just didn't see anything and just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed it. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah.
And just a real quick question of staff, because this is I've presented this before. Doesn't that make the application incomplete at this time if the 9 criteria response isn't provided?
Emily, do you want to answer that?
When I can check back on our completeness review. Oftentimes applicants will submit a letter, just sort of generally addressing the variance requests, and we'll inform them that it's in their best interest to specifically address the 9 criteria, but we often won't kick it back if they don't directly kind of go one by one, because while it's in their best interest, we usually accept the letter that they have submitted. And yeah, Travis would know more if they had submitted any revised items since then.
There was no other revised letter, but they did submit the revised plans, reducing the width of the pool by 1 foot and the walkway. So now they're 1 foot deficient as opposed to 3.
And just as a quick note to the board, it looks like the applicant has dropped off the call. I haven't seen them pop back up in the waiting room.
Okay.
Just for our purposes, how does that work, in terms of us making the decision if they've dropped off? I mean, they were here for the beginning part, but does that cause any issues for us to decide the matter? I don't know if that's to Emily or Missy.
I would say Missy.
Uh-oh. You on mute, Missy.
Yeah, she's still on mute.
You're still on mute, Missy.
Somebody needs, yeah, there we go.
There you go.
I lost audio again, so on the phone, and I'm okay, I can hear myself now.
We can hear you. I don't know if you heard me, but Emily indicated that the applicant dropped off. So we were just trying to determine if we needed to make a decision, if it was appropriate to proceed.
He's back.
I'm sorry.
He's back.
Cox Cable decided to disconnect my internet and I had to log on my phone. Okay, you're gonna fucking mute me? Oh.
Sir, we can hear you, sir.
Sorry. Okay. The phone is flickering too. Cox is working outside of my house now.
I asked the question, Mr. Lowenthal. I was reading the packet, the documents that were submitted, and I didn't see anything from you that provided a response to the 9 criteria. The only thing that I saw in the packet was the letter that you submitted, but it didn't go through a response to the 9 criteria.
I did not receive that. I did send a revised drawing when I was asked for a compromise, and I shortened or lessened the width of my pool by 20%. Because that's what the board wanted me to offer them, a compromise, and that was the best compromise that I could possibly get to get any symmetry in the pool and move as far away from the property line as possible.
Okay. Were there any other questions or comments from board members?
Commissioner Diaz, I think you and I were looking at this one quite a bit, and I think you had made the suggestion giving him some outlines of how to make the reduction. Was it what I think, if I remember correctly, that was just more of a request to try to figure out how to come into compliance, correct? You're on mute, Rami.
I wasn't there. We're just having issues with meeting today. I wasn't looking to compromise. I was looking to see if there's a way to get a, and that's not our MO, to see if there's a way to get it within compliance, or at least, show that the criteria have been met, or justified the needs. So, yeah, I think I've got the same question as Candace: is how does this satisfy the 9 criteria?
Never will.
Seeing as there's a way to get this thing to work within the footprint of the requirement. I understand that it's just a foot at this point.
Yeah, I just don't see how this cannot come to compliance. I mean, it's really, you know, you need to provide the 4 feet. If it doesn't work, it's just a site that doesn't work. And I mean, I just don't see how this can in any way, why would we be having to grant this? Just my personal opinion.
Yep.
Well, what would have been the compromise that I was asked for the last time, basically to bend to the rule that doesn't follow?
As the commissioner indicated, Mr. Lowenthal, it wasn't a compromise. It was to see if there was a way for this project to come into compliance.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the drawings were showing that there might be a little bit of room to make it work, and so we were asking.
I was trying to keep it from the side of the foundation of a historic structure and provide a walkway that's 3 foot wide on both sides.
Right.
Right.
Which is what I submitted, which is 3 foot, 7 foot, 3 foot.
I think, what's the setback requirement, staff?
There are none in the.
What's the setback requirement?
Pool setback is
4 feet. Is 4 feet. And I think it was the conversation of 3 foot to the paved stone, I think is what we talked about last time, Commissioner Diaz.
Yeah, the drawings were a little bit unclear because it looked like it was dimensioning to the outside edge of the pool, which was the paving, not the inside wall. So now the drawings seem to be more clear, showing that it does not quite fit. You know, I mean, it'll fit at 6 feet if the pool is 6 feet wide, not 7 feet wide.
And I think that's what we talked about last time was the suggestion then was the 6 foot width.
It's just a very narrow alley to be fitting a pool in to meet the zoning. So
that's the problem with the French Quarter, is that we don't comply to anything in zoning anymore.
But a 6 foot wide pool would comply.
Well, that's the point of going to the variance committee, is to ask for, you know, special exceptions when you try and put something in. I'm trying to not be able to touch the pool on both sides and actually give my son and more than 3 people area to swim. And I realize I can never meet 9 criteria because the pool is a luxury item and it's not a hardship. The hardship is the CZO and the lot in the French Quarter. And since 100% of it is buildable area, all I'm asking for is to be able to center it and put it 3 foot from the property line. I'll include any mitigating factors that the board wants. I mean, the pool is slanted towards the Burgundy Street elevation and the property next to me sits about 4 inches higher than mine. So there's no way to drain them or, you know, flood them or anything like that, if that's the concern.
Well, the concern, as the staff indicated in the report, was outlined in their response in their discussion of the 9 criteria. And so I understand requesting the variance, but when you request the variance, you would have to show in places where you don't meet the 9 criteria some type of justification. And that's why I was asking the question, because based on what we have in front of us, we don't see where there's any response to the 9 criteria to the criteria of the 9 that you did not meet.
Again, I was not provided with an updated one to know a response, but I'd be happy to. I mean, the only one that I know that I don't meet is the 4 foot rule, and that's strictly because the CZO was changed to create a problem.
So we're not referring to the actual zoning ordinances. There's 9 questions that we ask, and that's what's provided in the staff report on pages.
And that's the hardship. And a pool is never a hardship.
So
I get that.
So Mr. Lowenthal, the 9 questions that are on pages 9 through 10, 9 through 11 of the report are the 9 questions that have to be responded to in order to validate a hardship for any condition, whether it's a pool, whether it's a structure, or any other type of variance or waiver request. It's not just particular to to your application.
Sure. And that's what I submitted on the original one. I didn't know that there was a change. It wasn't brought to my attention.
Are there any other questions from board members?
Well, just to clarify, Travis, I'm looking through the record. Was there a letter in the last submittal about the 9 criteria? Because I'm not seeing. I'll go back and trying to find.
The original submittal has a letter that kind of, doesn't go through them one by one, kind of more broadly.
It's on page 26.
Okay, I say that's the same old. That's the earlier letter. Okay, got it.
Any other questions from board members? Is there a motion?
I'm just going to make just one last point on this one. I mean, just showing that the pool had been reduced shows some level of mitigation. Right now, in its detail, I think it's just more of a desire of convenience. And even from the public comment, this is more about the individual benefit as opposed to really establishing something that causes a detrimental condition where a waiver would need to be granted. Because if you're able to move it in 3 feet, you're able to move it in 4. Not seeing where and I have the floor. Thank you. I'm not seeing where it can't still come into compliance with the CZO.
Are you making a motion, Commissioner?
I can, if no one else has any further comments.
Proceed.
Madam Chair, I, Todd James, move to accept the staff's recommendation as it believes that the 9 criteria have not been met and deny the request for BZA docket 010-20 for Article 22, Section 22.6 EE1 for swimming pool distance from lot line.
Just want to correct that it's 010-21.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. I'll revise my motion as corrected.
And I'll second Romero.
With regards to docket 010-21, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz to follow staff's recommendation and deny the requested variance, finding that the 9 criteria have not been met. Roll vote. Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez.
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz.
Yes.
Matthew Rufo.
Yes.
And Candace Forrest, yes. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next item.
All right. We'll now begin with unfinished business for decision appeals. The next items are items 3, 4, 5, and 6, BZA dockets 018, 019, 020, and 021-21 for a property at 1321 Calhoun Street. This is an appeal of a decision of the Director of the Department of Safety and Permits regarding the determination that the subject property has attained legal nonconforming status for a second principal structure. And we do have some public comments. All right, the first public comment comes from James Phelps at 1314 Ursuline Avenue in support of the application. I am messaging because I support the BZA's original decision for the property to attain its non-conforming use. I am familiar with the owners, and this property has been in limbo for some time now. With its state looking worse for wear, now is the time to rehabilitation and enhance the appearance. With the BZA's original decision, the NCU will give the owners a chance to start again and improve the look of the neighborhood. I am against any and all appeals and in favor of the BZA's original decision for the property to attain its NCU. And it looks like that comment was actually in opposition to the appeals rather than support. The next comment comes from Jennifer Page at 1231 Pine Street in opposition to the application. I, Jennifer Page, as property owner, ask you to deny the appeal of the NCU designation of 1321 Calhoun accessory building. Exhaustive documentation and proof was provided to establish the NCU designation and fully support the NCU designation. The next comment comes from Justin Schmidt. Let me set my timer. 909 Poydras Street, Suite 1500, in support of the application. As the majority of the current BZA's members have sat on the board for some time now, I would think that by now, at least one of you would be asking why we are seeing so many appeals of the Director of Safety and Permits decisions. I have not researched the exact numbers, but I'm confident that the number of appeals filed in the last 3 years far exceeds the aggregate number of decision appeals filed in the 15 years prior to the most recent 3-year period. The prevailing Louisiana jurisprudence case law regarding various boards of zoning adjustments, including the City of New Orleans, all consistently affirm that when the BZA sits to hear a decision appeal application, sits as a quasi-judicial body, more akin to a court of law, as opposed to an approving body that considers waivers and variances. However, starting with Mayor Landrieu and continuing with Mayor Cantrell, the board appears to have taken a different approach to its charge, and instead of sitting as a judicial body weighing the facts presented in the record, this BZA board has made it a regular practice to vote in a manner that sustains the decisions of the director, regardless of the facts, to reduce potential liability to the city for the issuance of building permits in error and/or the questionable determinations of the director or her designee, which are not based in law or fact. In fact, Board Member James can even attest that in conjunction BZA docket number 14-16, after Member James moved and Member Gonzalez seconded, BZA Board Member James, Diaz, Forrest, and Gonzalez voting for the appeal with Screen, Bursey, and Malone absent, granting the appeal, thereby overturning the director's decision, at which point Mr. James reported to me that he received a call from Mayor Landrieu, where the mayor reiterated to Mr. James that when my director make a decision, you should regard that to be a decision by me. I trust that Mr. James was telling me the truth, as I am abundantly aware that this is the kind of thing that the former mayor would say. The bottom line is that the BZA must stop ruling on cases based on the desire of the administration, instead as impartial finder of fact and ruling in the manner in which the CZO commands. This docket and the next would be a good place to renew this practice. All right, and since these items were combined, I'll continue reading for 019-21. This comment comes from James Phelps, 1314 Ursuline Avenue, in support. So it appears in opposition to the application. I am against the appeal of the original BZA determination of the non-conforming use. The property should attain its NCU and have the chance to be renovated. These appeals seem to be from upset, entitled neighbors with a loud voice. Their claims should be dismissed. The property is desperate need for work. The attainment of the NCU will only improve the neighborhood. We have a comment in support from Justin Schmidt, 909 Poydras Street, Suite 1500. Should my comments in the previous BZA docket run longer than prescribed time, I respectfully ask that the pick up my comments from the previous docket and continue and finish reading them on this one, as they are germane to both dockets. Thank you. The next comment in support comes from Karen Edmonds, 1325 Calhoun Street. And the comment reads as follows. I would like to respond to some of the comments made by Bob Ellis in support of the Kovaleskis, the owners of 1321 Calhoun Street. First, he argued there was a cyber attack and questioned the notice via email. The email sent by Kindle to the Kovaleskis, attached as Exhibit 5 to my 3/8/21 letter, clearly advises of the determination and states you can appeal the decision to the BZA within 45 days. The homeowner's representative emailed back 20 minutes later, Exhibit 6 to my 3/8/21 letter, acknowledging the denial. Now Mr. Ellis argues that there was a cyber attack and questions whether they received the notice. Exhibit 5 and 6 clearly show the owners received notice. Then Mr. Ellis argues that the owners did not appeal because they did not have counsel. Obviously, retaining legal counsel is not a requirement to appeal a decision by the BZA. The 45 days to appeal is not predicated upon retaining counsel. Even if no notice was given, which is false, using the words of Ms. Becknell, all determinations are on the One Stop NOLA website and can be viewed by anyone. The neighbors appealing herein did not receive notice of the 11/10/20 determination, but we managed to timely appeal. Mr. Ellis suggests some type of improper motive by me in suing the Kovalevskis. Actually, the determination of NCU was denied on January 2nd, 2020. No appeal was taken. Therefore, I retained counsel and filed a lawsuit in Civil District Court to have the structure removed, which was no longer allowed as per the determination of January 2nd, 2020. Prior to filing this lawsuit, I sent a certified letter to the Kovalevskis asking them to remove the structure to avoid a lawsuit. I received no response and had to file suit. After my lawsuit was filed, the Kovalevskis retained Mr. Ellis and started the process of circumventing the BZA and threatening for a redetermination. The BZA should understand the Kovalevskis purchased this home in 2016. That's the end of the time. Would the board like me to finish reading this comment?
Yeah, just go ahead and close out the comment.
Okay. The Kovalevskis purchased this house in 2016, and neither the main house nor this accessory structure have been occupied since their purchase in 2016. The entire property is blighted and has been since 2016. The January 2nd determination was not properly appealed, and the Department of Safety and Permits incorrectly reversed itself, then attempted to justify the reversal by issuing the interpretation 20 days after the reversal. I ask that my appeal be upheld and that the January 2nd, 2020 determination denying NCU status be reinstated. Thank you, Karen Edmonds. And then there are no comments for 020-21. The final comment comes from Nathaniel Burton, 1920 Lafreniere Street, in support of the application. Bottom line, these appeals are unfounded and shouldn't be considered. The property has been in need of a renovation for a while now, while the non-conforming use determination, with the non-conforming use determination, it finally has the opportunity for improvement. Without the NCU, the house will stay how it is, and more neighbors will send negative comments about how it looks. Please move forward with the NCU decision. It's about time the property is upgraded. And that was a comment in opposition to the appeal. That is the end of comments pertaining to these combined items. And since there was some opposition, we need to have some rebuttals. I'm sorry. All right. So since there was opposition, we have Wogan Bernard signed up to speak. And I guess, Missy, how should we handle this since there was opposition to just some of the, should we allow all of the applicants to rebut?
She said yes, Emily.
Okay, perfect. So first we have Wogan Bernard signed up to speak for BZA 018-21. You have 5 minutes to rebut.
Thank you, Emily. Real quick, just in response to the comments in opposition to the appeal, they seem mostly concerned about the fact that the NCU will prohibit the owners to clean up, rehabilitate the property. Well, first, I disagree with that. I mean, they can easily file a permit to rehabilitate the property as the accessory use as it currently, or has been, the garage, and not tear it down, which I've already done. Not remodel, not rehab, in a way to expand the footprint. So I think that saying that the appeal and denial of the appeal will somehow hamper the redevelopment of the property is just not the case. That's all I have to add.
Thank you. We now have Donna Young signed up to speak on behalf of 019-21. You have 5 minutes to rebut.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to respond to the comments. I think Mr. Phelps said that it will give them a chance to improve the property. And the last commenter said, without the NCU, the house will stay how it is. Well, the main house has stayed how it was, blighted, since the time the Kovalevskis bought it in 2016. So this has nothing to do with renovations of the main house, which there are broken windows and people can get in and out unlawfully. Secondly, He says, Mr. Phelps said that this has been in limbo for some time now. The Kovalevskis purchased the house in 2016. It wasn't until December 4th, 2019, when a stop work order was issued for work they were doing in violation of the permit, that they realized, oh, now after the fact, we've already started work. We're violating the permit for emergency repairs for termite damage. Now we're going to apply for NCU status. So I don't think the neighbors who are directly adjacent to this property and do have a vested interest in what the neighborhood looks like, I don't think it's their fault that this is now in limbo. He did what he thought was right. He applied for NCU. That was denied in January. And for 8 months after being told to appeal, they didn't appeal. And that's why we're here. And I think, as Commissioner James mentioned when he was talking about variances on another appeal docket item, he mentioned some really important things. He said that laws and guidelines are in place. You need to stick to the guidelines of the CZO. And there's a reason why you have these. And I think that's been our theme throughout this. There's a reason the CZO is in place. There's a reason why we are here with the BZA to address this, because we appealed properly and the department on its own took you out of the process, reversed itself, and then justified that by issuing an interpretation 20 days after the reversal. So for all those reasons, we would ask that our appeal stand and that the January 2nd, 2020 determination be reinstated. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We now have Logan Bernard signed up to speak on behalf of 020-20. You have 5 minutes to rebut.
Thank you. I have nothing further to ask. I think just everyone's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we also have Christy Trail signed up to speak on behalf of 021-21. You have 5 minutes to rebut.
Okay, thank you. My video is not allowing to come back on, so I don't know if y'all need that or not. Okay, there we go. Thank you. All right, I thank you for this opportunity to comment again. I agree with Mr. Bernard that this property can be rehabilitated without the NCU. As I mentioned in my previous comments, the structure has been significantly altered already, and the fact that this property has been allowed to remain in such a state of disrepair is not acceptable. I also appreciate the comments by Mr. Schmidt to ask the BZA to remain an independent body. Lastly, some of the comments in opposition of this appeal are from outside of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. The board has in previous months suspended the rules to allow the property owner, when not the applicant, the ability to rebut as well. Would the board like to consider a motion to do that?
Thanks, Emily. I was actually going to bring that up earlier. So if I taught James to suspend the rules to allow the property owners' representatives to respond. I believe last time we gave them 3 minutes of time, or was it 5? I can't remember.
I don't remember that, but I think we may want to give them 5 to be consistent with what the applicants are receiving.
That's fair. So I would suspend and suggest a 5 minute per respondent.
And I'll second that, but I do have a question. Given that there were 3 different things combined into one, is there any need to adjust, or 4, any need to adjust the total time, or is 5 minutes sufficient? Just out of fairness.
I think because it's 4 different applications, let's just maintain the 5 per. If it was a singular application, that's when I think we usually had that 15-minute rule. But since it's different applications, let's just go ahead and respect each speaker for the 5 minute time frame.
It's only one speaker,
Yeah, only one.
Commissioner James.
All
It's
right.
just the property owner.
That's right. I'm sorry.
4K.
I just noticed that there's been multiple people speaking in and out. My apologies. So let's just keep it to the 5 minute total.
Okay, well, I guess my point, Todd, was that there's four responses, 4 different applications combined into one, and so it's just been an imbalance of speakers versus the property owner. With that said, I would support. I mean, I'm usually if there's still time needed,
That's what I was gonna, if we need to get to additional time, the applicant hasn't spoken yet. Why don't I don't really have a voice, but let's just take it 5 at a time.
I'll second Todd's motion for 5 minutes.
It's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz to grant the property owner 5 minutes to speak. Roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest, yes. The motion carries. Mr. Ellis, you can proceed. If we look like we're getting close to the 5 minutes, just let us know if we need to consider additional time. We'd have to do another motion.
Thank you all for that. And I don't think I'm going to require the full 5 minutes. So I'll be very brief. One, the city, after receiving secondary information regarding the historical nature of this building, determined that it was historically accurate, that there was in fact a dwelling unit in the rear of the building. This property is zoned to where it can have 2 principal dwelling units. That finding is in the CZO. The city's determination doesn't reach for anything that's not permitted in the CZO. And I think that's really important because the appeals and the applicants, they keep saying that the property has lost this zoning and it's lost this use. It never did. And there's been no proof of that whatsoever. In fact, the only thing I've heard is they keep saying it wasn't occupied on the left hand, but the right hand and the trade association already acknowledged that there was a dwelling unit. And that's what the city found. And the city found that based on evidence that was submitted. And granted, the first application was not complete, and there's no denying that. They didn't have the gas bills, they didn't show you the gas utilities, the stove, etc. That second redetermination was included in that. And so I think the city properly found that the redetermination was correct. It is permissible under the zoning. And what's interesting is the neighbor's property, the 4 key neighbors who have started all of this ruckus, the ones who were invited day one, all have an exact building that does the exact same thing and serves the exact same purpose. And so I think it's completely disingenuous of the neighbors, but more importantly, to allege or contend that this was the administration's will is not correct. This is a new director, Tammy Jackson is the one who rendered this opinion. Ashley Becknell wrote it. It's consistent with the zoning, and it's consistent with what we submitted. And that's when they start talking about the Sanborns were submitted, and this was that. The Sanborns show a building, that's true. They don't show what it was used for. And that's what we proved through a preponderance of the evidence. We showed that it was always a dwelling unit. We have gas bills, we have electric bills, we had mail. And that's what we established. That's what this current NCU is on. That is what I have to say is why I think that the NCU should stand. These appeals should be denied. One other thing that keeps coming up is the status of the property. The reason the property's in its state is because the neighbors have maliciously continued to complain that the property didn't have a permit. So the stop work orders would be put on one building or the other. And so my client did the right thing. They stopped work. But the problem is one of the stop work orders was done right in the middle of a hurricane, and they couldn't secure the building because they called the city so many times that the inspectors put stop work on both buildings, I'm sorry. And so it's disingenuous again to say that the property's in a state of disrepair because my clients want it that way. They don't want it that way. They're trying to move into the family home. They just want it restored the way it was. And I think that is very important for this commission to understand. So we're not asking for anything that's not already permitted. It's clearly in the CZO. It was established by preponderance of the evidence. And I thank you for your time and ask respectfully these appeals be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll have some questions from the board, but I just had to take a moment before we got to some of the questions germane to this item to speak on the comments from one of the members of the public, Mr. Schmidt. And I just feel that it's important to take note because Mr. Schmidt laid out some allegations that are very disturbing. And as a member of the bar, I'm sure Mr. Schmidt can understand that to make allegations that a member of the board participated in ex parte communications could find Mr. Schmidt in some issues as well as the board members, and to suggest that any of us operate in any way other than an impartial manner as voluntary members of this board is not only inappropriate and patently false, but just disturbing to have put that type of information as part of the public record. And I just felt the need to speak on it because several of us were referenced by name, and I'm sure Mr. James may make a point as well, but I just was very disturbed that those types of comments would have even been suggested, given that the numerous amounts of times that Mr. Schmidt has come before this board, we have tried to be nothing but impartial in working with he and his clients as much as we possibly could, still within the confines of what the law allows us to do.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and I do echo those points, and I appreciate your eloquent delivery of it, because I probably wouldn't have been as nice. But I've just kind of come to learn that, I mean, this is just the typical behavior from Mr. Schmidt, and I think it's in poor judgment, poor taste of him to even try to attempt to insinuate something of such. And I'm sure that he's using the basis that his comments is him as someone from the public as opposed to him legally representing someone. So he's probably masking himself behind that as a reason to speak with some type of accusatory language. So once again, I'm not really even fazed by what he stated. And I would just hate that even for the representatives of who filed for these appeals, I want you all to understand that I'm not taking his languages on you guys' behalf. Okay, so
I meant to reiterate that as well. I apologize. I wanted to indicate that that in no way has any bearing on one way or the other, positive or negative. I didn't want the applicants to think that that had any bearing on our discussion today or decision. Normally, we won't usually comment on items that aren't applicable to what's before us, but just felt the need given the gravity of what was stated.
Oh, definitely. Because I mean, hey, I guess it's tag. It's my turn. I'm the next board member for him to come after. So shocker, it's March.
Is there a time we could request just a brief statement on that issue, like a one sentence?
Say again?
I just wanted, I know we need permission to speak. I was just asking if we could say one thing regarding that statement.
I'm not understanding the question.
You wanted to speak about what Mr. Schmidt stated?
Yes, just a comment that I represent Ms. Edmonds, and I think I could speak on behalf of all the other neighbors. I had no idea that statement was coming. I've never spoken on the phone with Mr. Schmidt, and I feel horrible because I know you said it's not being held against us, but I just want you to know that I certainly knew nothing about that comment. And it disturbs me as well as an attorney. And I just, like I said, I'm glad that you said it won't be held against any of the neighbors, because I think I can speak for Wogan and Christy and everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for those comments as well, Ms. Young.
If I may, I didn't have any comments with anybody about this matter, so I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, he tried to bring up that we had some conversation. Apparently, from what that basis was, that was years ago that he's trying to claim. Whatever, I'm over it. So let's actually get to the people's work and try to get to some point of clarity to try to help resolve this issue. So my apologies, Ms. Young, for taking up the front end of that. So like we said, so what do we have in front of us, Ms. Becknell? If you could try to help us. So, you know, my favorite question is, what is the actual question?
So the actual question here is whether the Department of Safety and Permits erred in determining that this was a second principal structure.
Okay.
And I did have a couple of clarifying questions. I know that a few points were brought up by the applicants and just wanted to get some clarity. Just in terms of the question, I believe that Mr. Bernard may have mentioned, and I apologize if I referenced the wrong applicant. I was trying to keep up, but I believe there was a question around the abandonment of the nonconformity, and I didn't see in the statement that was provided by the city, and just wanted to get clarity why abandonment would not be relevant to this particular matter.
So in this matter, the department did not determine that there was a legal nonconformity. The department determined that there had been historical proof to authenticate that this was a second principal structure. Abandonment is not relevant to that inquiry. It's only relevant to a nonconformity inquiry, which is a different question than the one we've undertaken here.
Got it. And the second point, just in terms of the reconsideration, and I just know in other areas and other appeals that we've had, there have been instances where there was a reconsideration or a second decision that was issued by the city. And is there a timeline when those reconsiderations occur? And just in terms of is there a deadline by which a reconsideration would have to be done?
There's not. The Department of Safety and Permits considers every request for an interpretation or a verification or determination on its own merits. We will reconsider something if there is substantial new evidence presented, or if there has been a significant change in the way the law is viewed in the intervening time. So it's really a case-by-case basis, and our decision of whether to actually accept a case for reconsideration in and of itself would theoretically be appealable. If someone were to come to us and say, I'd like for you to reconsider this decision, and we said, no, we don't feel that that's we don't feel that that's appropriate at this point, our decision not to review it could be appealed.
That was going to be my next question, so you got to it already. Thank you. So
You're
there's
welcome.
always that option to appeal, and at any point.
That's correct.
Thank you. Those were my questions. Board, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I was gonna sort of ask, I guess, Mr. Ellis, because he made a couple of comments in that regard, but I will say if anybody really can answer. It's the major, the adjacent neighbors, you say that they're utilizing the property in the same manner that your client wants to use it. And I'm look at Google Maps, they all have to have, they all happen to have structures adjacent to the back property line that they seen that the footprints and sizes are similar to what your client has. And just for clarification, are those properties being used as second primary homes with kitchens and not, have their own bills and stuff, or those are actually, garages?
Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I can't answer that for all of them, but I know, like, when I was in my client's house, I went up to the second floor of their principal building. I could look down into Karen Edmonds' place. Her back unit is obviously sit there for living quarters. I don't know if she has culinary kitchen because I didn't go inside them. But then I actually submitted a map showing of all the other neighboring houses having similar structures. I don't know if it's principal or not. I don't know what their use is, but they definitely have. It's not garages. You wouldn't hang, and like for Karen Edmonds' position, you can see like curtains in there, and it's done up really nice. She has a garage on the other side, and then the Sayers property, which is directly behind us, is attached to the principal building, the second principal building of my clients. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
I would just like to briefly add that, to my knowledge, the Department of Safety and Permits has not been asked to verify or authenticate whether any of those structures are secondary principal structures. So we have no comment on that point.
I just, to clarify, and just my own comment, I think I had to leave before the last meeting. We got to this item. I totally understand the concerns of the neighbors of property, projects happening on property lines and concerns about encroachments and construction challenges and things like that, as I've had that happen to me. These housing types, these kinds of properties, they seem to be all over uptown. I had friends of mine had lived in those apartments when we were students at Tulane. So I can kind of understand too that there's a history on the site. The question I have to staff though is just to clarify in my mind, the issues of the encroachments or the size of the building or the inappropriate additions or demolitions or things like that. Those aren't germane to this discussion or this decision, right? Those are part of the stop work order and going to be handled a different way. This is just about the use of the building itself, right?
That's correct. This is limited to whether it has properly been classified as a secondary principal structure. I believe Mr. Kindle, my colleague, is much more versed on the status of the plan review. So if you have specific questions about that, he can help out, but that's not what's being appealed today, and that's not the decision at issue.
Are there any other
Would
questions?
you like me,
Oh, go ahead, Mr.
sorry,
Kendall.
would you like me to add anything to that, or are you? So just briefly, the initial permit that was issued was for an accessory structure, and that was issued a stop work order. So we have received revised plans to renovate this structure as a second principal dwelling. We have not issued a permit on that yet, and we will verify that that permit's in compliance with all CZO regulations with regards to non-conforming structures, because as a second principal structure on a rear property line, it would not meet the standard rear yard setback. So that would have to be evaluated in the permit review, and the issuance of that permit could be appealed.
Are there any other questions from board members?
I guess the only thing is just kind of coming back to page 2 of the staff's report, where you get, I guess, into the second response under the memorandum. If you could just kind of help to walk us quickly through those checkpoints again, with the affidavit and the logs of rental payments, everything that necessitates to establish how it was in use. Nick, you went through that and it met all of it. It checked that criteria, or is that still under review?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. We did check the criteria for part of our determination as to whether it was a secondary principal structure. We have not gotten into any structural nonconformity determinations. The items that we reviewed included the affidavit stating that the second structure had been used as a dwelling unit since the 60s, that the affiant lived in the unit in the 70s, and that the unit has had a gas stove since its conversion. Log showing received rent payments, copy of mail and utility bills, and insurance documentation showing repairs to the rear structure, including repairs to the gas line to the kitchen.
And does the 180-day window apply in this case if you could demonstrate the historical?
It does not. This is an inquiry as to whether we can verify and validate the historical existence of a second principal structure, which is separate and apart from any nonconformity discussion. Nonconformities can be abandoned, non-use of 180 days, but that does not apply to the second principal structure determination.
And that's why I wanted to make sure that it doesn't have any applicability at this time.
That's correct. It does not.
Okay.
Any other questions from board members?
In terms of board action, we would need to take action on the individual items, or are we going to be able to address these consolidated?
They've all been consolidated.
Okay.
And just clarity, I don't know if this is to Ms. Becknell or Mr. Kendall, but I know that there was discussion of a stop work order, and that's separate from the discussion regarding this decision appeal. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'll defer to Nick to provide any additional information on that stuff.
Yeah, so the stop work order was related to the permit that was initially issued, which was essentially to repair an accessory structure based on the fact that we did not have plans that showed any sort of expansion and addition of that structure. We issued the stop work order. That stop work order has not been listed, partially because of this appeal, as well as partially we need to address issues related to the structural nonconformities located at the property. So depending on the result of this appeal, as well as further information from the applicant, we would then either issue it a permit or provide comments to the applicant saying that there would need to be a variance for a deficient rear yard setback or whatever that might be.
Okay, thank you. Just seems to be a lot of moving parts with this. I was just trying to make sure everything was was hammered out. Do we have any other questions or comments from board members?
Just one last bit of, actually, well, Madam Chair, I could make a motion if the motion's in order.
Go ahead, proceed.
So I'm gonna make a motion, but I want to preclude the statement by just coming back to the staff's report and more so the latter part of the description on page 2 of the staff document where they do make mention under the CZO 21.4A4 when we talk about the second principal use structure. Look, I do understand what the neighbors' concerns are, but it just makes it very, look, here's the thing, there's provisions within the CZO that allow for a lot of different conditions to come in and be allowed down the road. And I think a lot of this actually came through the process of how the CZO was revised back in 2015 to capture, in many cases, special conditions like this because of the historic nature of how properties are developed across New Orleans. So in taking further understanding from the staff, understanding that the 180-day question isn't a part of this application. We're just strictly looking within the confines of how they've addressed it from this point going forward. And also from Mr. Kendall's comments where he stated they still have to go through just cause in order to substantiate anything further. So if there's applications in place that still need to be reviewed, we have to trust the process for them to review it. If a permit is then falsely issued, then I'm assuming that the applicant has the same process in order to appeal if a permit is still incorrectly issued down the road. So with that, my motion is to uphold the decision of the Director of Safety and Permits for dockets number 018-20, 019-21, 019-21, 020-21, and 021-21.
Ramiro, I'll second.
Thank you. With regard to BZA dockets 018-21, 019-21, 020-21, and 021-21. It's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz, to uphold the decision of the Department of Safety and Permits, finding that there's not an error in that decision. Roll vote. Todd James.
Yes.
Tamara Eggins.
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest. Yes, 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries.
And Madam Chair, just as a point of privilege, just to the applicants, look, I appreciate what you guys have done here, just trying to get some point of clarity. We just ask that you just do have some faith in safety and permit staff and how they do have to go through this process. It's unfortunate because every application is always unique. So, but I'm sure that if you stay in communication with them, I understand that now a lot of communication protocols have been cleared up since. Just make sure you stay aware of any changes that may come down the road. So this process is still available to you.
Thanks, Todd. I would second that myself too.
I was going to say the same thing too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
We'll now begin the new business for variances. The next item is item 7, BZA docket 022-21 for property at 1010 Melpomene Street. This request is for a variance to permit the construction of a 2-family residence with insufficient lot area. As a reminder to the board, the staff recommendation is for denial. And I know that board member Diaz has recused himself from this item. And we do have some public comments for this item. The first comment comes from Andrea Nika Morris, representing Greater New Orleans Housing Authority, 4640 South Carrollton Avenue, Suite 160. The comment is in support of the application. The Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance, GNOHA, supports this request as it will allow for the creation of deeply affordable housing opportunities at a time when New Orleans desperately needs more housing that is priced to meet the needs of the average citizen. And that is the final comment for this item. Since there were no comments in opposition, there is no need for rebuttal.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members?
Yeah, I was just curious, Mr. Curtis, what is the timeline for the totality of the project?
I think I heard you say, what's the timeline of the project in totality? We hope to be breaking ground in 6 to 9 months on this development.
And just as curious, how you're working out the lease, I guess, the land lease agreement to be able to park cars on the back lot? I'm just curious.
You said, so there's parking behind the 2 adjacent units, or the 2 adjacent buildings, which house 4 more units, yes. And so there'll be a driveway in between those units, and that parking will be available for these residents as well. What I didn't mention is that we'll have 6 spots in total, so one per unit.
Right. So, sorry, I was trying to sort of find out, do you have some sort of agreement in place for be able to provide parking in a separate lot?
Well, those lots will be controlled by us as well. Those are under the same circumstances, housing authority lots, and so we'll be the owner via, or you can't say owner, but we'll have control of those lots via the ground lease, all of them together.
So maybe a better way to frame this, Curtis, is this is all part of the same RFP process, RFQ process with Hano, where you guys came in, all of these lots were assembled as one package for you to do some type of affordable housing package?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So that's how it's being configured, and you're just doing your phase development to advance it.
Exactly. And there is a home ownership piece on a separate part of that land, and that's part of what caused this problem as well, trying to make way for that.
Gotcha. So how many will convert to homeowner? I know it's not pertinent to this particular lot, but just for the sake of the conversation around this development, how many of the parcels are converting to home ownership?
3 of them will be home ownership, with 2 of them permanently affordable.
Okay.
And just a quick question, Mr. Doucette, I didn't see that spelled out. Did you all submit that into the record? I saw something from the Lower Garden District Association, but I didn't see anything from the applicant specifically. Did I miss it?
Regarding?
What you were just explaining to Commissioner James about the plan.
Right. So we didn't bring it up because it's not, I thought, somewhat irrelevant to this particular parcel.
Okay.
But I guess it is relevant in that it is a part of an overall plan, and the reason that we did go in that direction.
Got it. Thanks.
And just a question of staff, and this is just kind of understanding what other, and I'm not suggesting he needs to go a different route. I'm just asking this question for the sake of how we got to this point. This isn't a project that would traditionally go through like a AHPD application because it's a unique mix of homeownership with affordable. Is that correct?
I don't know that the report is basic. It's based primarily on the CZO, and the CZO doesn't really speak to those kind of issues, as the tenancy of a building, whether it be owner occupied versus a rental.
Right, and that's not what I'm speaking to.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, what I was asking a question on, Robin, was
okay.
I know that within the CZO, there are other application processes that there's an AHPD mechanism inside the CZO that people would do for some type of multifamily development. This is a very unique one where we're talking about a mix of affordable housing and with transition to some level of affordable homeownership as well. So that application model wouldn't really work here, where that review process would be very different and will go through City Planning Commission, as opposed to in this case, which is dealing with individual lots because of the unique configuration that Hano has put as a part of their application packet with the with IRIS. So I'm just trying to put enough context out there in terms of how this is really a one-off thing again because of
understood
this development.
That is correct. What you just said, yeah, all of that is correct, that this is a different kind of a development. And as I understand the other development process, this one doesn't lend itself to that.
Correct. And just to come back to your report on page 9 of your report, you do talk about the unique development pattern in the area, and where it was, I think you said 30% are developed with the 2-family dwellings.
Correct.
And because of that, while it does not establish that majorative development pattern, it is still uniquely situated within how the general area has been developed because of the smaller size of lots that do exist.
Correct. Yes.
And Commissioner James, you kind of touched on a little bit of what I was struggling with, because in looking at the staff report and seeing the 2 items that the applicant didn't meet, I was trying to get to an understanding of the first point about the conditions being created by the property owner. So that was part of why I was asking the question, because I didn't see anything that specifically outlined what the applicant was doing. That's why I was asking that question. So thank you for kind of framing it a little better than I did.
Yeah. And I think that helps to at least articulate a lot of the concerns around criteria 3 and 6. Understand this, particularly with 3, this is because of a configuration of lots that were brought together for one package, and the developers having to work within the limits of that in order to make something responsive for the benefit of affordable housing in the area. In a second, and I think that it actually helps to address both, really, just that response.
Well, if I may, I offer up my apologies for not really exploring it to that extent.
That's what you got us for, Robin. We're good. No need to apologize. So and I do appreciate how you did frame it within the report. So thank you again. To me, I think your report actually helped us to bring it over the hurdle.
Yep. All good, Ms. Jones.
And actually, so if we were to grant this variance, what provisos would we need to add with this report?
The provisos would be sort of the standard packet.
The standard 3?
Well, they're actually, I actually have 5 in mind, but
Okay.
but yeah, it would be the 3.
Well, I want to make sure I'm capturing it because I may have just going back and forth and having people accuse me of certain stuff, throwing me off my little.
Well, what I'll say is it would
So-
definitely be the standard 3 plus any others that might apply specifically to that property as opposed to some others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that's what I'm looking for. What would be the 2 additional provisos?
Okay, let me pull those up again. Because they're not in the report because it was a recommendation for denial. So if you give me a
Right.
second, I'll be
No
happy
problem.
I'll be happy to pull them up. Hold on 1 second. All right, the first 3, that would be no building permit to be issued by Safety and Permits until BZA has approved it. There's that one. That's one of the standards. Restore the sidewalks, that one. Street trees, that one. Street trees in the right of way. I also would have added, if this had been a recommendation for approval, I would have added that to clear it through DPW for any improvements to the adjacent public right of way, including sidewalks, curbing, and curb cuts, and any modifications of the surrounding public rights of way. And I think that may have been it. That may have been it. Okay, so it was 4, not 5.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, and look, I appreciate you taking the time to chat.
No problem.
So, Madam Chair, for motions in order?
Yes, and I guess I'm glad you went through them, Robin, just for the applicant's benefit as well, having not had those previously so that the applicant can understand what the provisos are. So thank you for going through that.
Mhm.
And Mr. Doucette, do you object at all to the 4 as suggested?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, is a motion in order?
Yes, I'm sorry. Are there any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, you can proceed, Commissioner James.
Thank you. Madam Chair, with regards to BZA docket number 022-21, my motion is to accept and approve the requested waiver for Article 11, Section 11-3A1, Table 11-2A for minimum lot area. Understanding that the 9 criteria have been met, accepting staff's language for 7 of the 9 criteria, and to include my comments earlier regarding criteria 3 and 6 to show that all 9 have been met, and also to accept the 4 noted provisos as provided by Ms. Jones.
Alvarez will second. Candace, you're muted.
Yep.
I was just going back. Sorry, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Alvarez with regard to docket 022-21 to grant the requested waiver for minimum lot area, finding that the 9 criteria have been met and adopting the discussion from today in support of satisfaction of the 9 criteria and subject to 4 provisos. Roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamar Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest, yes. 5 yeas, no nays, the motion passes, and noting Commissioner Diaz's recusal. Next item.
Thank you. The next item is item number 023-21 for a property located at 3420 London Avenue. This request is for variances to permit the construction of a 2-family residence with insufficient lot area and insufficient lot width. This is an after-the-fact request. As a reminder to the board, the staff recommendation is for approval, subject to 2 provisos. There are no public comments for this item, so no need for rebuttal.
Were there any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, motions in order.
Yes, proceed.
Yeah, in regard to docket BCA 023-21, I, Jose Alvarez, move to approve the request of the waiver of Articles 13, Section 13.3A1, Table 13.2. Accepting the staff recommendations with the 2 added provisos.
Again, second.
Thank you. With regard to docket 023-21, it's been moved by Commissioner Alvarez, second by Commissioner Eggins, to grant the requested waivers from Article 13, Section 13.3.8.1, Table 13.2, the minimum lot area and minimum lot width, finding that the 9 criteria have been met and subject to 2 provisos. Roll vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest. Yes. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries. Next item.
The next item is item 9, BZA docket 024-21 for the property at 2631 Urquhart Street. This request is for a variance to permit the creation of a lot with insufficient lot width. As a reminder, the staff recommendation is for approval, subject to 4 provisos. There are also no public comments for this item, so no need for rebuttal.
Are there any questions or comments from board members? And seeing none, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, for motions in order.
Yes, proceed.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, with regards to BZA docket number 024-21, my motion is to accept the staff's recommendation for Article 11, Section 11.3A1, Table 11.2A for minimum lot width, as it meets 9 of the 9 criteria, and move for approval with the 4 noted provisos.
And I'll second. Ramiro?
Thank you. With regard to docket 024-21, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz, to grant the requested waiver for minimum lot width, finding that the 9 criteria have been met, subject to 4 provisos. Roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest. Yes. 6 yeas, no nays. The motion carries. Next item.
The next item is item 10, BZA docket 02521 for the property at 6007 Bullard Avenue. This request is for variances to permit a fast food restaurant with excessive front yard setback and parking as a dominant visual element. As a reminder, the staff recommendation is for denial. There are also no public comments for this item, so no need for rebuttal.
Are there any questions from board members?
Sorry, this is Rami. I'm trying to get to the.
I was doing the same thing.
We're going too fast. I mean, no, we're not going too fast, but we're going fast enough that I can't keep up. So, I mean, I guess I have one question for the applicant. There were some comments about trees and mature landscape, but when I look at Google Earth, it doesn't look like the parking area is really at all. It doesn't really have much going on at all. And then my question is, I guess, to confirm that, and then I do have a question for staff. Maybe we'll do the question first about the trees to the applicant.
The trees around the perimeter on 3 sides are mature trees. There's not very much small landscaping is what I would call it. There will be under the drawings, the design, we will be adding the small landscaping shrubbery. We will also be adding a end cap and a middle island to the parking lot to satisfy some conditions of current code of the parking. And where we could, we try to meet all current code. And I didn't mention it prior, we do upgrade the parking lot to meet current drainage codes. So we have the impermeable area, but it really boils down to that the foundation cannot be moved under the economic constraints without, if you move the foundation of where the existing building was, it restructures the entire parking lot.
And just in terms of the economic, are you saying that it's the cost, it's cost prohibitive? Because that's not something that we would consider in making a determination.
Correct. I know I can't use that as a determining factor in y'all's. Honestly, if we could have submitted a variance for the time frame to rebuild after destruction by Hurricane Katrina, that would have been the optional route, but there's no way in the code to submit for that variance. Like I said, the parking lot layout that we see in the plans is exactly the way you see it in the field right now.
And I'm struggling to understand your point about the timing. Are you saying that it couldn't be developed at any point from Hurricane Katrina to now?
Since we're going back in the same structure in the code, forgive me as the exact time frame, but after a structure is demolished, you have so many days, so many months to rebuild it in that same condition, say if there was a fire, hurricane, natural disaster. Mm-hmm. If we had a way to extend that time frame, we would fall under the same codes that we're trying to achieve with this.
And when was the structure demolished?
What's that, ma'am?
When was the structure demolished?
I don't have an exact time frame. It was a result of Hurricane Katrina.
Got it.
And it, like I said, it was a Taco Bell before, and we're trying to put it right back on that same foundation.
I know you had some other questions, Commissioner Diaz. I didn't want to jump the gun. I'll let you finish with your questions. I'm very familiar with the area, so I had some as well.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's a question to staff. I mean, some of the stuff about the parking, I mean, I'm less concerned about I could see a justification for the building given the adjacent properties and some of the comments about Katrina going back on the same site. But some of the parking stuff, I don't understand why that can't come up to and can we split it up? Can we approve or deny certain parts of it, or do we have to do the whole thing?
Yeah, so you can choose to give them, like, for instance, like the setbacks, the parking, it's listed in like I think the first page of the report. They're asking for, so because they're leaving the site completely intact, the curb cuts are over the required allowance. They're asking for, so parking in this, it's in a design review overlay. So parking can't be the predominant element. What we ask is like parking be on like the side of the building or behind the building, but not be like a sea of parking and then the building. And then also they're asking for like lighting. They have existing light infrastructure that's 20 feet. They're only allowed to have 18. And then they also cannot park. There's only 4 spaces that are non-compliant. You can't park between the front facade of the building and the street. And so there's 4 spaces that don't, there's 4 spaces that they could like remove that are in conflict with that.
Hey, a question to Missy. I thought that in the past, I know that we used to have modified approvals, and I know that we've stopped going through that process. And traditionally, I've just asked for applicants to make modifications to these packages to try to identify where they could come into compliance ahead of us taking action. Do you agree with that, Missy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So while I do appreciate while he's making some of these comments and the question of making that type of a suggestion, it may behoove the applicant to consider just doing a deferral to make modifications to this plan to see what can be modified to suit, and then go from there, especially with consideration for some of the parking pad modifications, the exterior lighting. I mean, a lot of these things I think are coming because this is the standard model of how you may have the prototypical design package, and may have not taken 100% into effect the local regulations. So I think if we took the time out to make these mods, it would allow the staff time to address a report that's a little bit more in alignment with some level of consideration for the CZO.
If I can just add to that, Todd, that was kind of where I was going with this, is that
That was going to be my question too.
Yeah, I didn't think we could split it up, and I feel like some of the things, especially with the comment that you're going to meet the current drainage requirements, which implies that you're going to have to tear up the concrete anyway to make permeable paving. So put it back, in a different way. But with that said, there may be some conversation about, setbacks and other things that could maybe be worked out. So I'm not compromising based on a previous conversation. I'm just trying to say, you might have some ways to meet the 9 criteria with a different approach to the site. So,
and another thing I want to be careful of, Blake, is, so just a quick question. I'm assuming this is like a triple net lease type deal for this property?
Correct. And the owner's on board with this. He submitted a comment to y'all in your package there.
Yeah. And look, the reason why I'm asking that is, so there's a unique situation when we're dealing with this type of development, where when it is that type of configuration, while Taco Bell and the development group that you're a part of may be working through this scenario right now, let's say the term of the lease expires, the building and its improvements remain with the land and goes back to the property owner. So the next development will then have the benefit of being able to just maintain what's here. So if we have the option to correct and be able to come in a little bit more in alignment with the current CZO, that's always the best option to move forward, just considering the longevity of how this would be utilized.
And I understand that, and I see it quite often. And that argument, to me, if it would be acceptable to the board, we could stripe out some parking lots. But that does not meet the intent of the code as written under our interpretation of it, because the parking lot is still there. The concrete is still there. And to Mr. Diaz's question about the concrete, we were able to meet the drainage code by adjusting some of the drainage structures, not ripping out entire portions of concrete. There was one small area to go into an inlet.
Yeah, I'm looking at the plan right now. I'm looking at sheet C4.0, and there's a big area that's just a big rectangle being turned into permeable concrete. And I would argue that you could take out some of those parking spaces that don't comply and, do some sort of BMP there and maybe do some permeable paving in other parking areas. So I would argue that I see options here to do it a different way. And I also don't buy the argument that there's mature trees on the site, because in the parking area, it's just all empty. There's no trees. So,
right.
We need to meet the 9 criteria, and I just don't see how you can. I can see for some of you can make an argument for some of it, but the parking area, you've got all kinds of opportunity there to do some minor modifications to get the parking in alignment.
And I would actually suggest, I'm looking, this is not an attempt to push you out far. Just considering the limitation of the time frame to get this turned around, I'm almost seeing where you may need to ask for a 2-month deferral. And the reason why I'm saying this is to give the architect of record or engineer of record time to make the plan corrections, and then still give the staff time to still review those changes so that the report can be properly updated. Because Aspen, when is the deadline for the next meeting?
I think Emily has a better.
Okay, Emily.
Yeah.
Like, how soon would you need plan changes ahead
Because I
of
know
it being on the meeting?
this meeting was pushed back a week, so I don't know if that's gonna affect the next month's meeting. I was gonna ask that question as well.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
don't
get
have
to ask any of my questions. Y'all caught all of them.
generally we need about, so the reports get released like a week before the meeting and then a week before that. So generally we need plans about a month, but so 60 days would probably be better. I mean, it gives us time to review the plans, go back to the architect if we have more questions. So 60 days would probably be needed.
And that's why I was just asking that question. I
Yeah.
don't want to tell him 30 days and we're back again and deferring it one more
no,
time, doing that.
60 would be better.
Okay.
And just one follow-up question, Mr. Weatherly. I know you had mentioned there's an existing, I don't know if you mentioned it, Art, but I know there's an existing Taco Bell KFC combination, and you were saying that this isn't replacing it. This is just going to move the Taco Bell to just to this location.
That's correct. The Taco Bell KFC is immediately adjacent to this property, and it would move the Taco Bell out of that building into back to where it was pre-Katrina.
I have one more question for staff and just maybe the developer. Were there any signage issues? Just because we've had I feel like 4 different sign things come before us for New Orleans East. And I just want to make sure that there wasn't anything about, as I was looking at the Google Earth, there's some sign foundations and some empty sign things. And I just want to make sure that's included in the review.
The signage wasn't included in this review, but if the applicant does have signage they want to keep, I mean, that's something that we would need included in the next round. This application didn't include any mention of the signs.
Yeah, great catch, Rami. Great catch on that one. And Blake, I know that traditionally with your design packages, your signage guy would apply for a separate building permit. You may want to go ahead and just have that conversation early and try to have that included here to see if the package needs to be amended to capture your signage as well, because I'm sure it's non-conforming.
Okay, we show it in the sign location on our design plans, but we can go through that process. But I just want to make sure everyone aware we are the design team as far as engineering for the site. But I mean, I truly believe that this owner will walk away from this project if not approved, as is. And that's I don't have the owner in front of me to talk to him right now, but I truly believe that this project will be dead in the water. I'll go along with the 60-day delay where we can address anything, but just be aware of that.
So I'll just share this one with you. I've heard that time and time again, and they've already expended money to get to this point. What we're asking for is actually to try to help to get them into commerce. So I get it, but nah.
And I'll just chime in, just knowing the area, and I mean, there's been a difference of more than 15 years since Katrina. So the design of the building pre-Katrina is a lot different than what we have in place currently. So I think understanding that, hopefully the developer will understand, or the business owner will understand the need to have to update from what was there more than 15 years ago.
And, the building itself will meet all current codes because the building itself is a new build. But
and the chairwoman is referring to just the zoning ordinance. And yeah. And look, I mean, I in my previous practice, I've represented Wendy's a long time ago and did the one that's across the street from this property, and we made the modifications that was necessary to get a conditional use approved back then. So anyone who's in this game, especially in the fast food, in New Orleans Parish, traditionally you're dealing with a CU or some other type of use restriction. So this isn't new to them. And if I understand correctly, I know this is not the only Taco Bell they have in the area.
I don't know the exact number, but inside New Orleans, the city limits, I believe this is one of the few.
Yeah, one of few.
Yeah, I think there's only a few Taco Bells, but to Commissioner James's point, a lot of this is driven by the specific requirements in the city of New Orleans. So it's not unique to Taco Bell, but it may be relevant to fast food locations. But the Commissioner James did suggest, Mr. Weatherly, deferral to revisit the design. And just before we entertain that motion, did you have any objection to the deferral request?
I do not object.
Are there any other questions or comments from board members?
If a motion's in order.
Proceed.
Madam Chair, with regards to BZA docket number 025-21, I, Todd James, move to defer this item for 60 days.
And I'll second that. This is Ramiro. Yes.
With regard to docket 025-21, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Diaz to defer the matter 60 days. Roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest, yes. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next item.
We'll now begin with the Director of Safety and Permits Decision Appeals, new business. The next item is item 11, BZA docket 026-21 for the property at 937 Henry Clay Avenue. This is an appeal of a safety and permits decision regarding the issuance of a stop work order. And once again, the applicant has requested deferral of this item. There were no public comments submitted for this item, so there's no need for rebuttal.
Thank you. I guess just the same question to this applicant, because I'm not sure what the reason for the deferral is, but making sure that 30 days would be sufficient or if it needs to be 60. So that's a question to Ms. Glass.
Sure. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So we actually received a variance that addressed this entire issue, and the appeal period for the variance just hasn't run out yet. So all we're doing is asking for 30 days would be sufficient for us to just delay this issue until the variance is final and not appealable. So next meeting should be fine.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Is there a motion?
Motion's in order.
Yes, proceed.
Madam Chair, with I, Todd James, move to defer BZA docket number 026-21 for 30 days at the request of the applicant.
Tamara Egan, second.
Thank you. With regard to docket 026-21, it's been moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Eggins to defer the matter 30 days at the request of the applicant. Roll vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez, Jose,
Yes.
thank you. Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest, yes. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next item.
We'll now begin the new business for a restoration permit extension request. The next item is item 12, BZA docket 027-21. The property at 2372 Constant Street and 935 First Street. This request is for an extension for a restoration permit associated with the destruction of a structure containing a non-conforming use pursuant to Article 25, Section 25(3)(d)(2) of the CZO to allow for a 1-year extension. There were no public comments submitted for this item, so no need for rebuttal.
Thank you. Were there any questions or comments from board members?
Mr. Ross, I'm glad to see you're not Zooming and driving anymore. So
For the record, I pulled over in a gas station parking lot. I have a coworker with me. She would never let me do that, and I don't think I'd even do it to myself. So, thank you.
it's the end of the meeting, so I gotta have a little fun with you. Sorry about that.
You got it.
Are there any other questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion in regards to oh shoot, which docket is it now? I had it ready to go and then I closed. Okay, docket
027-21.
-21, yes, sorry. I move to approve the request to extend the period of restoring legal non-conforming use. And I look forward to seeing something happen to that corner property, my neighborhood.
And I, Todd James, second.
Thank you. With regard to docket 027-21, it's been moved by Commissioner Diaz, second by Commissioner James, to extend the restoration permit for 1 year. Roll call vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
and Candace Forrest, yes. 6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries. Next.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next item, item 13, was withdrawn by the applicant. So would the board consider a motion to adjourn?
Don't all speak at once.
It is 1:33.
I am looking to adjourn.
I, Todd James, second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Rufo, second by Commissioner James to adjourn the meeting. Roll vote, Todd James,
Yes.
Tamara Eggins,
Yes.
Jose Alvarez,
Yes.
Ramiro Diaz,
Yes.
Matthew Rufo,
Yes.
Candace Forrest, yes. 6 yeas, no nays. In record time, the motion carries and our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye.
Enjoy
Thank
your
you,
day.
everyone. We'll see you all April 19th.